I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Yes. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
And Council President Brito.
Here. Thank you. So last Friday, we ended up in the capital budget recommendations, and it looks and appears, according to my record, unless anyone would like to dispute that we are at DPW Parks skate park. That is on page 4747 of the budget book, page 47. Unless anyone has something different, would the council like to proceed? Any? Mayor?
Good evening, members of the council, members of the public. I believe we discussed the Riverside Recreation Complex pretty thoroughly last time.
We did.
And today, one of the other projects that we were looking at was to build upon the success that we've seen at the On Moniz John Park. And we recently christened the skate park there, the Kevin Robinson Skate Park. It's very highly used during the summer. Any day you take a ride down there, especially on the weekends, you'll always see people actively utilizing the skate park. Well, this year, the K-Rob Foundation donated to us the collection of skate ramps that he had, professional grade skate ramps. We've taken possession of it. I think it's at the DPW. And the goal was to bring a skate park somewhere else into the city of East Providence, so that other kids could also have the benefit of what the kids in the central part of the city have benefit to. So we asked for $30,000, and we feel that would be enough and sufficient money to prepare and grade and cement the platform.
Any questions from the council?
Where were we looking to have this done, Mayor?
This is we haven't finalized a location. This is something that is very early stages. When we were approached by Kevin Robinson's widow about donating the ramps, we, of course, were very pleased to take advantage of that. But I would like to see it somewhere else, maybe in the Riverside area where Kevin Robinson was originally from and had a strong roots in. But we don't have a final location determined on that.
So is this project looking to be completed in 2020?
We would move on it as soon as the funding is made available, and it would, of course, get completed as soon as practical.
Any other further questions from the council? Thank you, Mayor. So before we proceed into the next one, I just want to let everyone know, make you all aware that this is a public hearing. We're going to finish off what we have for capital expenditures, and we'll proceed with the public hearing immediately following. Next item would be DPW Parks upgrades.
So this line item just looks to set aside some funding that would be available for upgrades to all of our parks. As the year goes on, we pick up on certain places that need a little bit extra seed, a little bit extra work, and this is something that we wanted to have in the way of having additional funds available to make improvements to playgrounds if we need to get new equipment, benches, things of that nature. I know some of them are in need of some upgrades, and we figured that having that money available would give us the ability and the leverage to execute some of those improvements.
Any questions from the council? No. I take that as a no. We'll proceed on to DPW Parks Saving Point boat ramp repairs.
So I'm under the information that the Saving Point boat ramp has is in need of repairs to some of the concrete pillars and sections, and we're seeking $30,000 to make those repairs to the Sabin Point boat ramp.
Do you have an estimate on that?
We haven't gone out to estimate. We estimate $30,000 would give us the money we need to make the necessary repairs. But we don't go out to RFP or request on these type of capital improvements until we know whether we're going to get funded.
Right.
Because it's a process, it takes time, and we don't want people spending time putting RFPs together and putting in bids and quotes, and then we don't get the money.
Right. So this
is a rough estimate.
Your engineers would take a look at it and give a guesstimate.
That's correct. It's pretty much a guesstimate.
Just, Mr. President, quick question. Is this new request, or is there anything in that list we had gotten last time of
There is nothing
projects?
there's nothing in the old list. Matter of fact, Malcolm, do you have with you the up-to-date list? What we did is we went back and looked at all the capital improvement projects that you had brought up at the last meeting, and we've made notations on the status of all of those projects. And I say a vast majority of them are underway, complete, or RFPs have gone out. So the majority of those projects are slated to be complete by next year.
Any questions from the council? Okay, next item will be DPW Piercefield basketball court renovation.
This one's near and dear to me, and I think it's something that needs serious attention. Currently at Piercefield, you have 2 basketball courts, and then you have 2 tennis courts. During the summer, there's a program that's run by the East Providence Mohawks. It's a summer basketball program with tournaments, and the 2 basketball courts are filled to capacity. The place is well used. It's actually quite exciting to see everybody in the community congregating around at Pierce and enjoying sports and each other's company. But what we found is that the existing courts are in poor condition. The asphalt is cracking. I know that in the past there was some work done by some volunteers in the community, and they did significant work in trying to paint the existing courts. But if you take a look at the courts now, you'll see that there's big gaps. It's starting to crack. It needs to be replaced, the existing surfaces. What we propose is we would like to change over the 2 tennis courts to 2 additional basketball courts. We feel that would give the community a much bigger bang for its buck. We'd be able to run, and this is not for me, but this is talking to Damian Ramos, who happens to be here. He's going to speak on the issue later at the public comment. But it would give us the opportunity to run bigger tournaments, to attract people from all over the region, with 4 regulation-sized basketball courts there for the community to use. Just my anecdotal observations over the years, during the summer when I'm there for different events, I see the basketball courts always being used. Whether there's a tournament going on or not, it's always being utilized by youth in the community. And I rarely see anybody utilizing the tennis courts. We do have other tennis courts available to the public. We have the Kent Heights tennis courts. The high school is going to have, they already have, but they will have additional new tennis courts. So the tennis court, I guess, numbers are sufficient without those 2. Those 2 being converted over into basketball courts, we feel that people will still have the ability to use tennis courts in the city.
Any questions from the council?
Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'd like to add, which is kind of anecdotal to all of these recreation items, which I think are important because we don't want to let them go. We want to keep them up. I know Councilman Cahoon and I, as we travel with some Little League teams around the state, we see some great facilities. And, we're on the cusp. We have some good facilities, but they need work. My problem is not a problem. Well, my hope is that we can get some security built in. Maybe get the person back, not that person, but a person back there. And I've talked with Mr. Ramos, myself, Damian Ramos, and others. I talked with the workers at Piercefield. And those basketball courts, at times, you got to chase kids and young adults on mini bikes. Some of them, many of them, not even from East Providence, but they come, they ride and scuff it up and break up that asphalt. And when the security guard was there, he easily chased them away. So I hope somewhere in this budget we can get cameras and a live person, even if that person's there from 6 to 10, peak dark hours when otherwise we're going to be faced with the same problem in another year or two with the vandalism.
I don't disagree with you. Actually support that statement very strongly. I do know that in the previous capital improvement, there was some money for security cameras. So we're actually going out to RFP on that because there was also some money for security upgrades at DPW. So in order to get a better price, we're bidding it as a complete package to see if we get a better price on the security camera upgrades. I would hope, and my goal would be that when we design this new basketball court situation, we would put all best practices in place to make it secure and safe for the community, including better lighting if we need to. Part of the project that's ongoing now with the ADA improvements at Pierce, at the football stadium side, is to include better lighting. If you look at the outside and the front gate, it's pitch black at night. There's no lighting out there. So we want to, using existing money that we have now, to include lighting, and on those poles we would include cameras also.
I do see some existing money on this list from Pierce. Is any of that earmarked for anything? Or?
Yes, so that money, the existing money in Pierce, there is money in there for cameras, and that's where we're going to get the money for the cameras from there.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the council? Okay, next item will be DPW Piercefield baseboard scoreboard sound system.
So originally I thought that we had budgeted for the scoreboard. I was confused in my statements last time around. The scoreboard that we replaced with the one on the football field, we didn't have money dedicated to replacing the scoreboard at the baseball field. We'd like to ask the council for $45,000 to replace the scoreboard at the baseball field and to include a sound system. We currently do have money in this budget where we've gone out to RFP. I don't know if it's been finalized, but we're going to put in a new backstop along behind the baseball field. But in addition to that, part of the improvements that we'd like to make on the basketball side would involve removing some of those arborvitae trees to create stadium-type seating on the other side, because currently what happens is all the spectators are forced to sit on one side, and if you're watching a game on the other basketball court, you're watching through this game to watch your family and your kids playing on the other side. There's no seating allowed on the other side. So part of that money that we're asking for that improvement would be to create a pad on the other side of the courts where currently there are trees, and we would also look to put additional netting so that the balls don't come flying over from the baseball field and hit the players in the head.
Mr. President, if I can add, for anyone who's here and doesn't realize, I've talked about this several times, and it's not a frivolous thing in my mind. We have a state-of-the-art baseball stadium that's been here for decades. Little leagues, high schools, colleges have all come here to use it because it's a great facility, and they pay. Little League doesn't, but colleges and others rent. But they've stopped doing that because there's no scoreboard. In the state interscholastic league, they're not going to have a tournament here if you can't see the score and keep score. And the backstop fence, and I know you know this, Mayor, and the council does, but the backstop fence is out of the ground and curled up with sharp, jagged edges of fencing exposed. So not only is it very dangerous, balls slide under it, it's a problem. And there's no PA system. So when you have a game, the high school has had to bring in portable equipment that you put on the field, and it doesn't work well. So my hope is before winter really hits that this stuff gets done, because baseball starts up in March, and just like we went, and I know you weren't here at the time, but we went a whole year at the football stadium with no scoreboard, no PA, and it was all done after the fact. I don't want to see that happen again on the other side of the stadium where the baseball exists.
I'll give you my word that if these items pass, we will get right on it right away. We already are working on getting the backstop situation done. Part of the ADA improvements, if you take a look at the PS complex itself, we started putting in new sidewalks, even to, if you look at where the bathrooms are on the little circle, there's new sidewalks going towards the back where the baseball spectator stands are, and the goal is to bring cement sidewalks all the way to the stands, because currently a person in a wheelchair is going to have a hard time getting to watch a game. If they want to watch a friend, family, whatever it is, they can't get there and watch it. So we've got money put aside already for that, and we hope that with this additional funding that we'll be able to make this thing a first-rate place. I, too, travel around the state, and I get to see other facilities, and I see what we have here at Pierce. It really is something to be proud of. But that other line that I put up there, the parks upgrades, that's exactly to take care of some of these other parks that need some help. You know, there's other fields that need some additional attention.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? That being said, next item is DPW Pierce Field Pavilion with gazebo.
So as you may well be aware, that Pierce gets a lot of usage, and during the summer, our recreation department runs a first-rate summer program that brings in hundreds of youth from the community to our program. They do a summer foods program where they feed the youth. And while at the complex one day and sitting there and talking to some of the people in the community, they had mentioned it'd be nice if there was some type of a gazebo here, or some type of a place where, you know, if the weather got bad, they can go underneath this place and wait out the showers or whatever during the programs. A place where the kids would have a place to sit down and eat, and also a place that can be utilized for live performances, for theater, for music, things of that nature. So we started talking about this, and this would be a project that we would do with our own labor. We would look to maximize that money. We're asking for $75,000, but we'd be utilizing our own workforce to get this thing built.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, would this be something similar to what we have at the Anna Park, where there's an area with a couple of picnic tables, or were you looking to have something a little bit upgraded from that?
I was thinking along the lines almost like what we have at Crescent Park, where we have that little, looks like a theater, but it would have also something over the top so that when the weather is poor, the children could be underneath there, and, you know, you can sit there if it's sunny or whatever, they can have their lunches. But my end game would be, I'd like to make it something, and I think that we could all enjoy it, be something where we can have live performances. Maybe the high school comes in and plays the wind ensemble, or they could do performances during the summer. Young groups in the community could use it as a theater in the park, where they can put on shows for the community. So that's what we're looking to do. It would be a multi-use type of gazebo.
Mayor, would this also qualify, say, for a grant like we received at Riverside Square?
There are open, so there's open space grants that are currently open. I know that it was addressed during previous testimony from department heads. We are going to put in for every possible grant that we can put in for. The Director of Economic Development and Planning has put his people on it. I know that they're currently looking at and applying for different grants. A lot of these grants require matching money. And that's why you'll see there's one in here that is asking for some
we went through that
money.
last Friday.
Oh, that was the aggressive claims one? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to maximize our dollars. So if we can get state and federal money to come our way, so we can maximize our dollars, we absolutely want to take that direction.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Okay, moving along. We're now on page 48, and we're at DPW Public Buildings, Weaver Library Indoor Sprinkler System.
I believe this was discussed.
Yes, we did discuss this.
At the last meeting, yes, sir. He has our
Please.
library director has an update.
That was fortuitous. At the last meeting, Councilman Morato had asked about the grant cycle for the Champlin Foundation. And I talked with Mr. Tim Gorham, the Director of Grants Administration from Champlin, and he indicated that we can apply for a Champlin grant as long as the work is done in the same year. So if the work were to start in, say, January of 2020, we could apply for that grant in 2020. But he wanted to assure you, as I tried last meeting as well, that it's not guaranteed. It is a competitive grant process, and its funds do depend on market conditions, so that's not guaranteed. But for the council's understanding, we can still apply for assistance from Champlin. How much money they give us is unknown. So we will be pursuing that in a grant application.
If I can, Mr. President?
Sure.
Does the application depend on, so for example, I know for the school, when we go apply for competitive state funds, for example, one of the factors is how far down the road we are in planning, if we have the drawings done, et cetera, et cetera. Is it the same kind of deal?
No, and actually, Mr. Gorham said that having spent the money or, from the city side and looking for maybe some reimbursement or cost sharing or kind of having plans drawn up do not necessarily factor into it. And he qualified it with necessarily. So they may have that kind of a decision-making process. Their distribution committee makes the decision on how they award their grants and how much and to whom. But I don't think it's necessarily public.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Again, we're on page 48. Next item will be DPW, public buildings demo of 80 Burnside and 33 Hoppins.
So, Mr. President, members of the council, we've got some former school buildings that are currently owned by the city at 80 Burnside and 30 Hoppin. It's currently, they're abandoned. We had some meetings, actually we had a community meeting where we solicited people's ideas. We proposed several different concepts of what we thought might be able to be done there. One of them was to take one of the buildings and turn it into apartment-style housing. The other was to demolish the property and subdivide the lots into 11 8,000 square foot lots, I believe it was.
Single-family homes.
Yeah, single-family homes. And the other was to subdivide it and do bigger lots, like 10,000 square foot lots. The population that came out to the meeting overwhelmingly supported less density because it's a very dense neighborhood as it is. So we had gone out and gotten, not an RFP, but contacted a couple of different demolition companies and was given a price of about $450,000 to demo both buildings, okay? Our engineering department's been putting together a couple of plans, both the smaller lots, which would, I think, 8,000 square foot, and the 10,000 square foot lots. We feel, in today's market, that if this money was allocated, this money would all be reimbursed, so the city's not going to lose any money, but we need the money up front so we can do the demolition. If this money is allocated to us, we can move forward on the demo. We'll present the plan to the council, of course. If the council approves it, we move forward on that demo, and we subdivide the lots. We turn around and sell the lots at market rate individually to people who want to come in and build and develop, and we'll recoup the $450,000 demolition cost by selling the lots. In addition, we're going to realize a profit, and the additional benefit also is that you're going to have property that will be developed and will go on the tax rolls, and it'll be put to a good use as opposed to being a blight in the neighborhood. So we feel that this project has been a long time waiting, and it's something that we can start on next year if we have the money to do the demolition, and it'd be a matter of time. I've spoken to realtors and people who develop myself, and lots in East Providence are in high demand, buildable lots. And what we would do is we would make these lots pad ready. So we demo it, get all the zoning and everything done, and ready to go for whoever wants to come in and build on it.
So, Mayor, what would be the difference between if a developer decide, as we had at one point in time, to come in and to demo these buildings, as far as cost is concerned? Because a demo at one time was going to be the responsibility of the developer and not the city.
Actually, I think
So we absorbed this cost initially right up front.
we do, but I think we'd end up making more money in the long run, and we get put in there what we want through zoning. So instead of, I think the last plan called for multi-unit development type of project, the neighbors didn't want to see that, and I don't blame them, because it's a tight neighborhood to begin with. Some of the lots in that neighborhood are 5,000 square foot. Then there's 10,000 square foot lots. It's a very diverse lot size in that particular neighborhood, the surrounding streets. The neighbors were really upset at the idea that this was going to be a heavy use property with a lot of apartments. Part of the issue is there's no parking. A lot of the homes don't have off-street parking now, so it would be very difficult to add heavy use in there. With a 10,000 square foot lot, we're going to be giving people more than adequate parking. There'll be garages and parking in their own driveways, and the density becomes less. We as a city would make money just in selling the lots. We would be made whole on the demolition cost just on selling those lots. And then we'd leave it up to the developer to develop it under our zoning and specifications.
So is the plan to have the city sell the lots individually to various builders as opposed to one builder who will come in and develop the whole parcel?
It would be to sell it where it's going to be the greatest advantage to the city in the long term, financially. If you're looking to sell it, because I did speak to developers, if you're looking to sell it to one developer, they're going to want to come in at a much lower rate. They're not going to pay you what you could get on a lot by lot being sold, because they're going to want to maximize their money, and for them to be successful in this kind of project, they're going to pay a lot less than what we could sell it individually. We feel that we could sell these individually to individual developers, to individual people who want to build. East Providence, like I said, is a hot commodity. I've spoken to friends who actually go around buying lots to build, and they said it's very difficult to find one in East Providence.
Did the engineers give you a ballpark price on what a lot in East Providence goes for at that size?
I think we were looking at, I think it was like 70 to 75,000 for those sizes. So if we went with 10 lots, let's say we sell them at 70,000, it'd be $700,000, and so we're paying $450 for the demo. We'd have the net would be a profit to us. But even if let's say you had a hard time selling them at 70 and you're selling them at 60,000, you're still making a profit overall, and you're moving the property in a positive direction for developing that community and developing our city. Right now, that's bringing in $0. As a matter of fact, we have to expend money keeping it safe, making sure that people don't go in there and damage it, burn it down, cause an issue for the community. So we had people there. I think we had some DPW people there not too long ago, earlier this year, cleaning up some debris and stuff that was left there. So.
Any other further questions from the council?
Yeah, my question on this is, so the previous developer who was very interested in this property, and there was a lot of negotiation back and forth, a lot of community meetings, because, as you mentioned, the community was not comfortable with the renderings or what they were anticipating on doing there. They were trying to negotiate in that a really cheap sale for the city. They were trying to get essentially free from the city, because they said that the demolition of both those properties were in the upwards of $1 million to demo. So I was kind of interested in how we got the $450.
We contacted a major demolition company. I don't know if I should mention the name, but we asked them to come take a look. Mm-hmm. They didn't do a full-on RFP, mm-hmm. but they came back with that they feel comfortable they can do that for $450,000. Now, by you allocating this money, let's say you allocate this money to me, and we go out for RFP, and it's going to come out more than $450, then we come back to the council, or we revisit the drawing board. So if it comes out to where we can't afford it, then we'll come back and say, look, they're coming in too high. We've got to come up with a different alternative plan.
Any other questions from the council at this time? Okay. Next one is DPW Public Buildings Sweetland House, exterior repairs and improvements.
So I spoke with Ed Catelli on this. Last year, there was about $25,000 allocated. The house needs a lot more than that. They've spent some money on some of the project already, but it pretty much needs all new windows, needs new, there's a lot of woodwork that needs to be done on the building. It's a historic building, so we have to deal with those areas of it. The inside needs to be remodeled. So we're asking for another $100,000 to get the building done. It's an eyesore right now. It's over at the senior center. This is the building that's located at the senior center right now. We used to have our IT department housed there. We moved IT into City Hall. We used to have a senior services police officer who used to be assigned there. We moved him over to the senior center where he could interact with the seniors. So it's something that we feel that with that, from what I'm being told, with that kind of money, with $100,000, we can get a lot of that money done, a lot of that work done. And what we're trying to do, so the council's aware and the public's aware, we're trying to use our own manpower to make our money go further. For instance, if you look at the Weaver House, we had $100,000 earmarked for that painting project. Our own people have been doing the work on that project, so we're hoping to make that money go further. And if you've noticed it, it's already starting to look a lot better because the painting's already started on that building. But that's using in-house labor after hours or on weekends to get the project done.
So, Mayor, last year, $25,000, as you mentioned, was allocated. $13,000 has been used year to date. The $25,000 was for exactly that, windows and exterior repairs. So there's a balance of $11,000. What was actually done to that house besides the painting?
There were a few, not all of them, a few windows, the ones that were in the worst. It was so bad, from what I'm being told, that whenever it rained, water was coming in. So a few windows were done. But the building still needs to be sandblasted and completely painted. Rotted wood needs to be replaced, and the majority of the windows still need to be replaced.
Any further questions from the council? Okay. Next item would be DPW, Public Buildings, City Hall Security System for the Clerk's Office and Treasury.
So our busiest offices here in the city are the Clerk's Office and the Treasurer's Office. The Treasury Department takes in a lot of money, and it hasn't been updated in decades. If you go into different banks and financial institutions, you'll see that they take a different approach on how they design the facilities to ensure that the employees are safe and that the customers feel comfortable. Currently, during when the tax bills come due, you'll see lines of people coming all the way up the hallway. What we'd like to do is we'd like to see if we can get money allocated to make improvements to both the clerk's office and to the Treasury Department to offer a better redesign of the system, to offer a more secure area for the employees to work. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Any questions from the council? All right. The last one we have for the capital improvement is DPW, Public Buildings, Central Garage, Outside Camera Installation.
I think this might be a duplicate, because, is there, Steve? Is this not allocated already previously? No, it's not, okay. So this is part of the security improvements we want to do at the Central Garage. But I thought we had, and I could be wrong, because I've been looking at so many different line items, I'm not sure now if we had one previously, but he's telling me no. So this is the new one for $30,000 for security cameras at the DPW Public Buildings.
Okay. Any questions from the council? That concludes the capital improvement. With that being said, at the pleasure of the council, I'd like to perhaps open the floor for public comment at this time.
Fine.
Okay. Just keep in mind, there is a 3-minute limit. I'm not going to stand here and, I'm not going to stand here and just keep time of exactly how long you're going to be up there for, but just be conscientious of people behind you as well. So if you have something to say, please step up to the podium.
Good evening, members of the council. Dennis Roy, the CEO of East Bay Community Action Program. I'd like to pass out some stats about services offered to East Providence residents. I didn't realize I had 3 minutes. I'll go with breathtaking, real fast. Okay, so first of all, thanks to the city for a real partnership. I've been with this organization for over 30 years, and for 30 years, the city has provided us with municipal support through the line item in the budget. We're talking about Section 900 of the budget, and I think we're the first item in that section. So for over 30 years, the city has provided us with $30,000 in support for our organization. It began when the organization was struggling, and I and a bunch of other leaders were hired to turn the organization around. And I certainly believe we have done that over the years. So we are a nonprofit. We provide primary care, dental services, behavioral health services, social services, basic human needs, safety net services, early childhood education, child care, and other ancillary services to residents of the city. We serve 10 cities and towns, Newport County, Bristol County, City of East Providence. 9 out of the 10 cities and towns provide us with financial support through the city government budgets. We offer, as I said, a wide variety of services. If we could just look quickly at the highlight the services offered through the handout that I provided for you. So over $5.5 million in calendar year, we do this on calendar year basis. Calendar year 2018, conservatively over $5.5 million in services have been provided to East Providence residents, either directly or indirectly. So we employ East Providence residents, the local business community benefits, oil dealers, snow removal, you name it, hardware stores, everybody benefits by who we are and what we do. And most importantly, we provide safety net services for the residents of the city. So as example, we have over 30,000 encounters each year with East Providence residents. I'm not going to suggest to you that that's an unduplicated count, but it gives you a clear understanding of who we are and what we do. So we have a staff that provides case management services for senior citizens. When we get calls from the Division of Elderly Affairs or others to talk about elderly abuse and neglect, we're out there. So we provided almost 1,500 units of services to East Providence seniors in 2018. We have a contract to provide the meals for the East Providence Senior Center with the Division of Elderly Affairs through the federal government. Almost 25,000 meals were provided. We operate retired senior volunteer program, over 15,000 hours of volunteer support to the library in town, to other avenues of volunteer efforts. We operate the what's called the LIHEAP program, which is the Heating Assistance Program. 1,319 households in calendar year 2018 were provided over $733,000 in payments to help them with their utility bills. We weatherized 77 homes at over $330,000 of expenditure. We do work with lead education and outreach. We operate a youth center for residents, for young residents from 18 to 24. We do a lot of work with high school students. We help them with resume building. In fact, our youth center is part of the Weaver building across the street. We own over 60 units of housing in East Providence alone, where we provide permanent supportive housing for East Providence residents. We operate a 5-day-a-week and 1 evening-a-week food bank at the Riverside location at Bullocks Point Avenue, and over 900 families took advantage of that service in 2018. We're able to provide perishable and non-perishable items, and we really are the safety net for those families who may run out of their food stamps before the end of the month. We operate the Women, Infants, and Children's Program, and over 700 individuals are involved. It's nutrition education and nutrition vouchers. The Community Health Center in Riverside at Bullocks Point Avenue sees over 2,600 East Providence residents. What's important about this program is we provide services there, primary care services with full-time doctors and nurse practitioners, nurse midwives. These services are provided regardless of people's ability to pay for those services. So a service, a physical that could cost, $60 to $80, we do a sliding fee scale for residents who do not have insurance, and they may pay $20 for that service. We also assist families in getting into the Medicaid program, the White Care program. So it's a very important program that we operate. In 2016, we merged with the East Bay Mental Health Center to form one organization, so we now provide behavioral health services out of our Adams Folly complex on the Parkway. So we're on the Wampanoag Trail, excuse me, and it provides outpatient services. We have licensed clinical social workers and others providing those services. We operate a mobile dental program. We go to East Providence schools. We also have a vehicle. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's called the Ronald McDonald House Charities Mobile Express. It has 2 dental operatories, and we can provide dental services there. We have over 400 kids that were served. We operate the Head Start program. We have classrooms at Willard Avenue and Turner Avenue, and over 165 East Providence kids from 3 to 4 years old participate in the program. We operate a Healthy Families America program, which is a program that provides, we do home visits to moms that recently have had a baby. So all in all, over $5.5 million in services. I think we leverage this money, and we have leveraged it well over all of these years. We've got this funding during times when the city was doing well, during times when the city was having difficulties. Frankly, we even survived the Budget Commission. So it's another indication of the funding we've been provided. We have received over the years, we have received CDBG funds. We're very pleased to have received those funds. I know you know this, but just to point out, it's federal money that is given to the city because the city is an entitlement community, and 10% of the funds is used for CDBG purposes, for social service organizations like ours. That money is also always subject to the federal budget. It can change over the years. It's a competitive process. We're pleased to see so many organizations benefit by that. But if you put the level of services that our organization provides against these other organizations that do receive some of that support, you'd see quite a difference in the level of services offered. So what does the $30,000 do? It helps us to narrow the gap for those people who are uninsured by hoping to pay the difference in those rates.
I don't want to cut you off.
I know
If
that.
you can just narrow it down.
Yeah, I'm just about at the end of the presentation. I didn't realize I was only going to be able to do 3 minutes, but I wanted to have the chance to make sure that the council is fully aware of the services that we offer. I would love to have you come either there individually to the site at Bullocks Point Avenue to visit, to see what we do there. We are a safety net. I think our viability is important to the city because we're able to actually address these issues that individuals may have, the residents may have, that where there's nowhere else for them to go. And we're right here in town.
Thank you, sir.
I just have one question. You mentioned 10 cities or towns participate, only 9 provide any financial support. What's the, who does not?
Town of Portsmouth.
Portsmouth.
I should point out that the towns of Warren and Bristol easily provide $30,000 apiece, and obviously their population size is nowhere near the size of East Providence. Great partnership over many, many years. I really hope you can see it to restore the funding that, $30,000 30 years ago is obviously not $30,000 these days. We've never asked for more than $30,000, but we think it's a great part of a partnership that has existed for many years. We're happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions from the council? None at this time, sir. Thank you, appreciate it. And this is all for East Providence.
This is entirely East Providence residents. We do it on a calendar year basis, so we won't have the 19 results until maybe the end of first month in 2020.
Okay, very good.
We do this because the other towns usually have a different fiscal year. Yours is a little different. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi.
I'd like to, first of all, thank you as a council, as a unit. In the 15 years that I've been watching city politics, this is perhaps the most thorough investigation of a budget I've ever seen. And as a taxpayer, I applaud you. And I also want to thank the mayor for putting forth what I think is a pretty fair budget. So between all of you guys working together, I'm very impressed with the process. I would like to advocate to keep the $950,000 for the school department. I've sat in both seats, and I can tell you they stretch every dollar as best they can. I don't see a lot of fat on the school side. I think there could be some tightening, but I suppose that'll happen as it happens. And also, you have funding in there for the carousel for improvements on the property. It is critical to the livelihood of that carousel if we want to keep it running. It's very important that we update the grounds, the building, and we have a lot of structural stuff coming soon, which I've been watching your meetings, so I won't beat a dead horse. You know what it's all about down there. I'd also like to just suggest that you think about getting a project manager for the city, someone who will follow these projects, and I'll say that only because I've been watching for a long time. We start a project, we get funding for a project. I saw you guys talk about it the other day. I felt your frustration. It's because we have professional people that work for us. We have department heads that go over and above every day. And then you ask them to do just one more thing. You've literally put that straw on the camel's back, and it's evident by the lack of project fluency that we don't see these things happen. And if you had one person to do all of these, just put these in play, I think you would see the bang for your buck that you're offering, to approve. I think it would make a big difference in how we get things done. I don't know if you have budget for that or not, but those are certainly, it's an important thing if you want to see the stuff that you're funding get built. And that's all I have to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Please approach the podium. And just for future, just so you all know that we will have another meeting on Monday, the 14th, scheduled for 6:30 p.m. here. It is a public hearing. So, again, we will have another public and final hearing on Monday, the 13th, although it is a holiday. 14th, excuse me. Monday the 14th.
Good evening. I'm Tony DeSimos, the president of the Junior Townies. I just wanted to voice my support for the mayor's proposal for adding a field behind the Riverside Middle School. From my organization's perspective, field space is definitely at a premium, and any additional space would be greatly appreciated, and we certainly need it. And also creating the additional parking spots that would help alleviate some of the problems, some of the stress that we cause on the neighborhood as well. But that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, Mr. DeSimos, I just wanted to say, before you leave, I want to thank you publicly. I had reached out to you. As you know, there's that parking problem there and the lack of bathrooms. And the Little League people don't have bathrooms, but your organization does pay to, I assume you rent and not own those Porta Johns, and you graciously offer them to any youth group in the city. And to quote you, you said, we're all here for the families of East Providence, and hopefully everyone understands that. And I just wanted to give you a public thank you. The parking there is a problem. It's not like when we played ball in the 60s and 70s. Today, there are tournaments upon tournaments. You need bathrooms, you need facilities, you need parking. You don't just walk to the ball field anymore. There are cars all over that facility. And thank you for very easily reaching out to help.
No, anything that the city needs or any other organization needs, that we're always there to help. We're one community. Thank you.
Tony, let me echo that. Just, having been a coach in that organization and seeing what you guys have to manage. I mean, it's basically a giant Tetris puzzle on that field every night with, 7, 8 teams and hundreds of kids, and coaches always screaming for more space, et cetera. So certainly understand your sentiment there.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to come up and speak, please do so.
Hello, I'm Damon Ramos with the East Providence Moguls organization at the Boys and Girls Club. I just wanted to, the mayor had already talked about those things. Mr. DeSimos already just spoke as far as the field over at the rec. My organization, as far as uses Pierce and uses the field over at the rec. The rec field really could use some help over there. And as far as the parking, even during the springtime, the parents, the neighbors in that area constantly complain, and they have a right to complain. There should be some kind of parking spaces along the road for people to be able to park over there. It gets very, very congested and very difficult to travel. As far as the basketball courts over at Pierce, I came to the council last year and brought it to the attention, I wasn't really happy about how a certain someone laughed off my picture of a bottle in the crack of the asphalt. That's how bad the courts are. Mr. Carnevale did a good job of giving them a nice facelift. He brought down some of the costs that will go on now because the backboards are new, so we don't have to replace those. But the foundation itself needs to be replaced. It's sad that we have upwards of 600, 700 kids over there during the summer with just my program alone, as well as with the program that the city has, the day camp that the city has over there, that many kids are using it on top of the kids that just use it during free time that's going on, that we have such a poor facility over there, and that it's been allowed to get run down. The other thing that was talked about was he talked about the trees and the setting up changing the setup of the layout of the court. I know that the whole council has actually stopped by there and seen the different things that we have going on and come by and seen the program. Baseball is played right next door. Foul balls come over, and they come over hard. Mm-hmm. They come over so hard that we have a drill that we do with the kids at the beginning of games sometimes to make sure that they're prepared for a ball coming over the fence. We talked about doing something as far as putting a windscreen over there that would help with it. We had discussed moving the courts, but I think that this option right here, where we bring the court back out, make it a lot more exciting for the kids, a focal point for the city. All that stuff would help. So between safety and quality of life, I think it's a really good thing if we make sure that we get those courts done this year and not put it off another year. And if we're going to spend the money, we might as well spend the money to do it right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Coach, I would just add this to you. I talked to the high school baseball coach. They're going to hit more fair balls this year.
I was actually
that's the plan.
I was actually texting the mayor, and I had made a comment to him. Said, "Listen, this has got to stop." I said, "A ball just came over, and then another ball came over," and I said, "All right." And then right as I went to go text him again, I said, "Forget it. This team just stinks."
Well, Councilman, maybe we need more batting cages in this capital improvement.
Yeah, at least one.
But thank you, Mr. Remus.
Just so the council's aware, Damon has been in front of the school committee several times too, advocating for space, which is, more and more in demand, and, the space that he needs is frequently not available. So, for the volume of kids that you have coming through that program, and, you face the same challenges that, Tony faced with the junior townies. There's tons of kids that want to play, and for every kid that's playing, it's, something else they're not doing that they could be getting into. So these are important programs.
And thank you for what you do as well, because that plays a major role getting these programs off the ground. Okay. Any other person that would like to speak on behalf of a public hearing this evening, please approach the podium. If not, the council will proceed. I do have some questions, but before I do proceed, I'm just going to ask one more time if anybody else would like to come up and speak for public hearing. Okay. Just so we can move along, I know we just received this new list. You said it's a revised and updated. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I see this and I notice that, which I had talked about last Friday, vehicle, and this is the general ledger account that was handed out to the council last Friday. And we have a updated version from Mr. Moore this evening. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to go through each and every one of these, but the first one that comes to my mind, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I had mentioned this in Friday's meeting, is the vehicle animal shelter, which was listed here for $57,000, and it shows an ending balance of $57,000. When I had asked about this on Friday, I was told that there was a used vehicle purchase, but it doesn't reflect on the balance sheet. And then when I go over to the new list, it's removed entirely, unless I didn't go through this good enough to see whether or not it's on here, but I don't see it on the new list.
So I spoke to Mr. Muggle, the animal control officer, and I wanted to ask him about, what's going on with this particular thing. He informs me that it's going through MHQ, which is our police vehicle provider, and they're actually going through the process of acquiring a new vehicle. They had acquired, I guess, an older vehicle to utilize. They were, sometime back, I'm not sure on the exact date, one of their vehicles was involved in an accident. So the other day, I actually saw Mr. Muggle driving around one of the traffic control cars. I thought he was working the detail, because I know sometimes some of the employees, they work those traffic control details. So I asked him about it, and he explained to me that he's currently utilizing a traffic control vehicle to do his animal control functions, because the vehicle they had been involved in an accident, and that's taken out of commission. And he does tell me that they are in process of putting together a new vehicle for him to utilize that money.
So how come it's off the new list then?
It should be on the list.
It's in there? Okay, maybe I'm just, that's what I said, I didn't see it somewhere.
Right, they're here.
720, it's like
Okay.
two-thirds of the way down,
I see it
720.
now. Yep, all right. Yeah, it's on there. All right. So what is the total for this one, the new list we received versus the old list that we had, and I'm saying the old list, the list that we had on Friday? Is there a difference? Because on this, the list that we have received on Friday was outstanding, $14,457,000. $457,000.
I believe the number's the same. I think what we did was we just went in and sort of updated on the right to say a lot of times there could be things going on and it looks like nothing's happened, but on the first two you can see where it talks about the roofs, and we'd gone out to RFP, the bids came in too high, so we're trying to go out again. But if you look at it, you think nothing's happened. So I think what we wanted to do is go through and at least give you a status update of, where we at in the process. Are things being done?
Actually, those are, I believe, the roof RFPs. We went out for a second round, and they did come in already. So I believe they're in the process of either opening it or they have opened it already.
So what's that leave right now? What's the total amount of work that we have outstanding from last year?
You want me to go down line?
No, I just want the total. We don't have to go line by line, because my concern is that according to what we have on the books right now, the $14 million, we're looking to add another, what, $4 million. So, I mean, that's going to be $17 million on the book. And my concern is that all of this is not being in increments, these projects. So I'll say even half if we have $7 million on the books.
Well, can I just explain? We have allocated $8,274,000 for road paving. That is showing up as $8.2 million of money that doesn't seem like it's being used. But out of that $14 million, that $8.2 million is earmarked through a contract with a paving company that will be doing all the rest of the paving for the next 2 years. So that's that 8.2.
And that's what I took into consideration, said I'll take half and say $7 million. So if we have $7 million on the book, and we're looking to add another $4 million on the books for capital improvements.
We also have $253,000, which is 2 earmarks that was going to build a parking lot behind Riverside Middle School, but upon us looking at those plans, we determined that it would be a better use of city money and taxpayer dollars to build an actual field, but we came asking the council for additional money to make that a reality. So that money is the reason it doesn't show like it's encumbered in anything, because it's not. It's waiting there, and we would need your approval to put that towards building that. So that's another $250,000, $250,000 there.
So I'm still at $7 million, roughly. My concern is that we'll put more on the books, that we're taking on more than we can actually handle.
Most of these programs, if you were to look at them, they're either encumbered or there's RFPs. For instance, there's $100,000 that was earmarked for remediating the property at the Vamco property, $100,000 that was allocated for that. Now, that property, what that project was supposed to do was cap the property, which was put asphalt on it. But we have CDBG looking at seeing if we can market that property. We don't think it's valuable to the city to spend $100,000 on capping that lot when we're actively trying to market the lot and trying to get someone to come in and build. So some of these projects, they were funded at one time with a particular vision, and then we come in and look at it and say, well, what's the better use of that money? How can we better use that money? Same thing goes for the Oddfellows home. So the council had previously earmarked $100,000 to fix the roof. When we took a look at that roof, we realized right away that $100,000 wasn't going to be sufficient to do the work that we needed to do, because it required structural repairs, beam replacements. It was a lot of money, and to pay a prevailing wage, it didn't make sense using taxpayer dollars to do that project. So what we did is we worked that money into the deal and trying to find somebody who would come in and buy the property. So that $100,000 now is being offered as a loan to the person who is purchased the property, and that was part of the deal. They will now do the repairs on their own, make that money go much further because they don't have to pay prevailing wage, get the project fixed and get that building on the tax rolls and viable again, and then we'll write off that loan. So in the end, we're accomplishing the goal set, but we're getting much more for our money.
So when we go back to roads, for an example, and I know it's an ongoing, the city is capable of handling maximum about $3 million a year for roads. So how does DPW have the capacity if they're putting a lot of resources into the roads? Because I would think by next spring and summer, that we're going to be having a lot of mileage being covered as far as asphalt being laid down. So we're tying up a lot of resources there. So going forward with these other projects that are going on, or will be going on, how would that be managed?
So that project is currently going on. That project is in the first year of a 3-year contract that we signed, dependent on this money to sign the contract. So the people who are doing the work are not DPW people. It's a private contractor that's doing all the paving. We do have our own engineering people that go in and check to ensure that they're following, proper specs and all that. But that money has been encumbered and earmarked for that contract. Now, if they come in under contract, we'll have additional money that will go back into the capital improvements fund. Also, 1.2. There's another thing in here. That's an ongoing cost. It's $1.2 million. That's our lease on the 3 ladders. So, I'm sorry. No, that 1.2 million, that's the balance. That 1.2 million is the balance of the $750,000 that had been earmarked to purchase one ladder. We took that money, and we were able to utilize that 750 to not only make the first payment on a brand new ladder. It's the first lease payment is in there on a brand new ladder. We purchased one used tower truck, another used ladder. We're going to purchase a rescue, all out of that $750,000. So that money has been encumbered, and it's going to be utilized to get those projects going.
And just getting back to the roads, I mean, there is a quality assurance that we as a city have to maintain when these roads are being laid down. So it's not, only the companies that are managing these projects. We have to assign someone to these roads to. No, I understand. I just want to make sure that we have the capabilities, because I would think, and as I had suggested previously, that when we assign a project, a capital improvement project, whether it's for a rec center, for the basketball courts, the football fields, whatever it may be, my assumption is it's going to be completed within that year.
It's impossible to, Council President, it's impossible to say you want to see it completed in a year. Let's say today you...
So the football, the rec center, I'm at the field behind the rec center.
Let's say you authorize that money today. Let's say you authorize that money today. Once the budget passes, you say, here's another $100,000. I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to say, okay, I need your permission through resolution to take the $253,000 and put it together so we can do this project. Then we'd have to go out to RFP. Then we'd have to vet the different people. We'd have to engineer it, design it. I mean, everything takes time. We don't want to rush things.
But you're not going to start that project this fall, that's for sure, because the kids are on the field, and you won't start it during the winter time. But that's a project that most likely will probably start in the spring.
The project will
start. So that would give you all that time to do your engineering, your RFP. So this winter, that whole process, the RFP will go out this winter. We will square it away this winter in an event that it will be ready to go by this spring, like we talked about with Pierce Field. If we were to do all this for Pierce Field, for an example, we're looking at perhaps starting this early spring. I would think it's too late to do it at this point in time. So you get all your ducks in rows now throughout the course of the winter. So come spring, you're ready to go. You're not doing any bidding. It's not going out for RFP. You got all the information you need from the contractor, and you're ready to go. And at that point in time, you should have a kickoff date as to when they're starting this project.
Absolutely. That's what we'd love to do, yes.
May I ask a question, Mr.
Please.
President? Mr. Mayor, the sheet that we just got indicates which projects are ongoing and which ones are starting and all that. There are a number of projects that have no information associated with them. They're just blank. Or those projects that have yet to get off the ground?
Yeah, for instance, there's another big item, $600,000 for the South Broadway culvert replacement. The South Broadway culvert replacement is in need of repair. But what happened is, because they had some off-ramps closed and the DOT was utilizing South Broadway as part of the detour route, it didn't make sense for us to work on that project while all the other stuff was going on. We would have had complete gridlock. As it was difficult for people to get around during that time when those off-ramps, on-ramps were being worked on. So I spoke to our DPW director, and that's a project that we plan on doing next year. But it didn't work. It didn't work logistically to get it done this past year. It would have been a complete nightmare, because that may require closure of South Broadway with the on-ramp at Veterans Memorial Parkway closed. People were taking South Broadway to get around that as a detour.
Because my concern is knowing how much work is involved in an RFP and an evaluation and potentially a negotiation and then an award. Seeing that we have 10 projects outstanding, knowing that we have one purchasing agent, who's been very busy lately, I can see, and that's great. But I have concerns about, one of the things that I always look at when we talk about a project is what is, to Mr. Brito's point, what is the timing of that project, right? When do we expect that project to really begin and end? What are the prioritization of other projects? To Mr. Roderick's point, Mr. Carnevale and his organization did all that great work on the basketball court, and then we wind up with a car on there tearing it up. We've been waiting for surveillance cameras there for some time. We've seen all the concession stands broken into. What happens if we put a gazebo in place and we don't have sufficient surveillance, and you got people spray painting it or trashing it or whatever, right? So to me, it seems like, timing and prioritization of these projects is very important. And I think that that's something that we really need to consider before we sign up for additional projects.
But let me just be clear to your point. If you look at the ones that have nothing in it, if you look at the fourth column to the right, the ones that have nothing in it, the hurricane shelters at the senior center. We had some changeover in direction in the person who's running the senior center. That project didn't get off the ground. That's a 2019 project. So this was funded in 2019 for this budget. So we are going to go out. We need to get, the way it was worked out, one of these is to pay for a study, to have somebody come in and engineer the building to ensure that it's properly safe for or could withstand a hurricane and be used as a shelter. So we need to get the study done first, and then we would hire someone to make the improvements that the study engineer would say was good. That's that one. The Riverside Square marketing study, that's actually in progress. That's part of that award that we have the landscape person that's doing the work in Riverside Square. That's the $30,000 match from the city. So that's already, even though there's no notation there, that's actually going out. The Art Fellows, that's done. 20-year comprehensive plan, that's a 2019 budget item. 20-year, we had the whole entire year, we were short one person. Mm-hmm. Our principal planner was acting as the director of the department. So they were short in the office, and despite being short, they got a lot of things accomplished, a lot of positive developments, as you saw by the presentation by Jim Moran. So there's a lot of positive things, but this is something we want to kick off this year.
How about the Weaver House? It shows $100,000, but then it talks about in-house labor.
That's the one I mentioned earlier.
Did you mention that before? I maybe missed it.
So the Weaver House, we're looking to maximize the dollars by using in-house labor to do the work. Whereas you'd have to pay prevailing wage if you went out and hired a contractor to paint it. I think prevailing wage is like close to $40 an hour. We can pay our own personnel much less to do the work.
Right, and I agree. So what about the $100,000 that was allocated for it? So where will that go?
That's going to go towards salaries and materials and whatever they need to make the repairs. So that would go towards...
Well, salaries are already on the clock, right? So materials...
No, they can't do this during the regular hours. They have to do it either after hours on the weekends, because during the regular hours, they're doing a regular job. So we're relying on current labor to come in and do the work. We prefer to pay our own people to come in and do it on the weekend at a reduced rate as opposed to paying somebody else more. We feel we can get the project done cheaper.
Well, per contract, union contract, wouldn't they be on overtime? Is that what?
They would, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it would still be less than paying prevailing wage.
Because if I go back to your earlier point, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very glad to see the comprehensive plan on there. As you know, our 5-year plan is 10 years old, and it was developed in a period where we were looking at a much different picture for East Providence than we're looking at now. To me, that would almost be, priority number one is what is our plan for the city, before we start kind of picking and choosing things that we're going to put in different places, right? I mean, I don't mean to pick on the skating rink, but I'll pick on the skating rink. The skating rink, for example, how does the skating rink fit into an overall plan and strategy for the usage of land in East Providence, revenue, expenses, et cetera, right? It seems to me that we would want to have what that site picture is, what that vision is, before we determine, okay, we'll spend money on this before we spend money on something else.
So right now, we know for a fact that Blount Seafood probably won't be coming back next year under the conditions that they're currently serving the community. We know that that's a much coveted amenity that we offer to our people. People in Riverside and throughout the city and the region come over to purchase their wares. The this is not something that's new. I guess it's been discussed even prior to our administration, prior to you being here. This is something that's been discussed over the years. We see the value in that immediately to try to get that project built for them, where they'd have a new place from where they could vend and possibly stay around longer than just seasonal. So that to us is important because we've realized that that's going to benefit the carousel. The ice rink, we also feel that we have a one-of deal with the person who owns it that is very attractive. And basically, we're asking for the money just to do the infrastructure, and we're going to work out a deal with the person who owns the property, very attractive to the city. That's not going to really cost us much money out of pocket. It's going to be more of an agreement with the vendor or the owner to do revenue sharing on the advertising that is you're able to get for the facility. So that seems like it's an important piece that may not be there next year. So we may lose an opportunity. The piece is here now. We have the opportunity now to do it. That may not be the case next year. We don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
So yeah, and and I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry if I'm being rude. And I think that's a very good point, right? There certainly is value in making sure that business, that successful business, stays put, right? But what is the trade-off of that value versus, I look at Riverside Square and I see a number of empty storefronts. Hearing from the people around there and the things that they would like to see put in place, like, maybe specialty grocery stores, things of that nature. To me, that's the kind of thing that, like, comprehensive strategic planning would tell us, like, okay, this is maybe the direction that we should be investing our capital, maybe helping some of these things get off the ground, kind of like we did with Oddfellows, which was kind of an albatross around our neck for a long time. How do we kind of crank up, the business environment in these areas that have kind of been, dragging for a little bit versus, I think a skating rink would be wonderful. I think it'd be fantastic to see people out there in the winter skating, et cetera. But, what are we paying for that in terms of value versus an investment that we could be making, somewhere else, right? And to me, that's why the plan, the strategy is why I'm so happy to see Mr. Fazioli here. That overall plan is so important. With that focus on kind of getting businesses up and going. So I'm fairly concerned about allocating a lot of money, and we're talking about a lot of money, into various other things when we don't have that site picture in front of us.
So if you take the example of the vendor that's there now, it's been there for quite a while, and it's part of the, part of the package. People will go to the carousel knowing full well that there's a great place where they can grab some clam cakes and chowder and enjoy a meal with their family. So that's kind of like, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. I think the carousel benefits from them being there, and they benefit from being close to the carousel. That particular project is something that's been vetted before we ever came on the scene, and it's something that I think is necessary to continue the success of the carousel. While I agree with you that there are other empty buildings that need to be looked at, and that will be part of the comprehensive plan that we can take a hard look at once we get that RFP out and hire a vendor to come in and do that project. These particular projects will not impact any of that. These particular projects, a lot of them have to do with improvements to existing land that we have, existing recreational facilities. If you look at this handout, you'll see that practically everything is encumbered or in process, and the ones that are not is because you had legitimate reasons for not doing it. For instance, the South Broadway culvert, we couldn't do it. It was earmarked for this fiscal year, $600,000. So you take that $600,000 out of that total amount. You take that, $8.2 million out of that amount. So you look at the actual projects that are in process, it's not a huge number. The culvert will get done. That's going to be done by a vendor. We're not going to do that work ourselves. We're going to get a special person to come in, someone who has expertise in it, to do that project. If you look at any other, there's really not many others up here. South Broadway culvert, the Delphemini field, that's the rec field, the 2 rec field items, that's the one we discussed ad nauseum. Riverside Rec remediated property redevelopment, that's the Vamco property. I mean, we think, you know, I know that Dave Bacharach's been in talk with a developer who wants to come in and develop. I'd rather see us not spend $100,000 on putting asphalt down when we can have a potential developer come in and buy it from us. Why are we going to spend that money foolishly? 20-year comprehensive plan, I agree. $30,000, that's part of that whole project that Kevin Alverson is doing right now, the architect. And then the only other 2 is the hurricane shelter and the senior center study. Everything else is pretty much either in process or ongoing, if you look at our capital improvements. And a lot of these are coming from 2019, and they were able to get them going. We feel that at the last council meeting, there was some discussion regarding the money that's in the capital improvement fund. And so I reached out to Malcolm, and I wanted Malcolm to further explain that to myself and the council, if you have a moment to listen to him. Because the money that we're looking to earmark for this is already earmarked for capital improvements. We're not taking any extra money to put into that account to make these projects a reality for our community. And when you talk about improving the amenities that we have for our people, it's vitally important for economic development. Because I'm sure, as you are aware, when I bought my house, and I wasn't even married at the time, I didn't have children, but I bought my house, and I bought it in Kent Heights because of a few reasons. Let me tell you. Kent Field. I saw that field right down the street from me. I said, this is great. Someday, when I do have children, I can just walk them down here and enjoy the field. It's a beautiful park. The Fuller Library at the time was an actual library. It was right up the street. I was like, this is gorgeous. Kent Heights Elementary School. It was those amenities that attract families to your community. And what we're trying to do is improve upon the great parks that we currently have and add to it by making it better. So a lot of the stuff that you look at, a lot of the projects do include infrastructure improvements to recreational facilities, because I value that personally. As a father, as a coach, as somebody who's seen children use our facilities, I think that's a huge asset to our community.
And that's an interesting point that you bring up about the parks. But I want to talk about a little that you were reflecting on the discussion we had last Friday, and bringing Malcolm into this, because I was a bit taken off guard when when we were told about the $2.3 million that was formerly in the sink and being transferred over to capital improvement. And I always thought and was under the impression in the discussions we had the last council was we were going to leave that in there as a safety net, as a cushion, as a savings account, essentially. So that was the first thing I was a little bit taken. But as we talk about the capital improvements, and you alluded to the parks, and as I go through this list here for capital improvements, and there's actually 31 of them here, but yet I don't see one of them or anything from Ward 1 on this list. Not one capital improvement for Ward 1. There's 31 listed here at $3.6 million. And we talk about improving our parks and our open space, and yet there's not one park for Ward 1 on this list here, or one project or proposed project for Ward 1 as well.
Can I just address that? So we are asking for $70,000 for park upgrades, and that would include all parks. We're looking at the areas that really need improvement because they have problems or issues or could use the investment. Ward 1, Kimberly Ann Rock baseball complex is probably the best sports complex in the whole city. It's the best Little League field that we have in this whole city. Myron J. Francis, we did invest some money in making some improvements to those fields behind the Myron J. Francis School. So I know last year that the DPW did a lot of seeding, aerating, and work on those fields. We worked with the Rumford Little League to install that outfield fence. The amenities and facilities in Rumford, for whatever reason, are in much better shape than some of the other facilities that we have throughout the city.
So why couldn't we do the same for the other part of the cities as well, then upkeep it like they've done with the parks?
So you're talking about stuff that happened way before me. I'm coming in now, you're talking about what happened before I was...
The fence was just last year, because I was involved with that process.
Right.
At Glen Lyon, I was involved with that.
Exactly.
So all the upkeeping that I'm saying, that you're telling me about that happened in Ward 1, why couldn't we now do the same thing in all the other wards as opposed to spending all this money, investing all this money?
Because if you look at all the different projects, Councilman, you'll see that, and if you want to go all the way back, you're talking about a splash pad. We're looking for match money to build a splash pad. Now, we built a splash pad on the Ward 1, Ward 2, is that in Ward 2?
Ward 2.
That's the Ward 2, Ward 1 line, pretty much. So that splash pad was built there and opened this year.
But that splash pad, if I'm not mistaken, was part of the original plan to be there in the first place.
Right.
So that was part of that whole master plan of revitalizing that park.
Exactly.
Having a skateboard and having a splash pad there.
Okay. And so what we'd like to do is we would like the ability to at least apply for these grants, and we need the matching money in place, because we're not going to go through and apply for a grant that could give us $130,000 or $104,000 of money to build a new splash pad without having the appropriate matching money. So we need to have matching money to make these grants become a reality. The DEM has open space grants that they'll fund up to $150,000, but we have to match $150,000. So you're talking about the potential of building additional playing surfaces for our kids.
I had the great pleasure this week of meeting a young gentleman who just so happens to be the Director of Stormwater and Resilience at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. And are we aware that they provide grants for these open spaces where we don't have to pay at all?
Who knows?
I mean, that's something I think that we should actually be tapping into. I'm going to be scheduling a meeting with him. He came and did a presentation for a resilient board that I'm involved with in Providence. And the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank literally has grants for these type of projects. And he and I talked about it for just a little bit, not much, because he had to go. But this is something that I think that we as a city should be tapping into as well. I mean, years ago, I had the great pleasure of being the director of the Fox Point Boys and Girls Club. And we had very, very limited resources being in the Fox Point Boys and Girls Club. Very limited. My program budget was probably $2,000. That included games room, pool, gym, and any other programs arts and crafts that we were running. $2,000. So I had to become creative. I had to get creative. So what I did was I partnered with some of the existing businesses in the area. For an example, Staples was one of them. CVS, huge supporter of the Boys and Girls Club. And Food Bank, we got involved with. All our programs that we ran, Brown University, more importantly, $60,000 grant, $20,000 for 3 years for lacrosse. They purchased all our lacrosse equipment. So what we did was we had to become creative in getting money because we didn't have the money to support the programs, in addition to working with the alumni to supplement these programs and sending kids off to camps and summer programs as well. We just didn't have it as a program. So we became very creative, and I'm just wondering now, I mean, this is a perfect example. When I had the opportunity to speak to this individual, and he's telling me about the money that's available that nobody's even tapping into. I mean, they're screaming, here, we got money, a couple of $1 million here, and nobody's tapping into it. And for these projects that you have, this is like ideal. So something like that where it's not even a matching. It's free across the board.
I know that many organizations will fund grants if you're a 501c3. If you're a registered nonprofit.
This is for cities and towns, by the way.
So we will look into that. This is the first I've ever heard of it. You heard? Yeah.
And these aren't 501c3s. This money they have aside is for cities and towns.
But the only thing I would caution the council on is we have a responsibility as elected leaders to ensure that we invest in our community to create a better city for our residents and for potential new people wanting to move in. We can't rely solely on hoping to win a grant and putting projects off until hopefully we get a grant, hopefully we get this, hopefully we do. But my thing is, we already are looking at state grants for state money. If this is a grant that exists, let me have our Economic Development Director come up and speak to it.
So again,
they may already be putting up for it. We'll find out.
Again, what you have to do, though, you have to you got to think in terms of that it's not for this year, it's for next year. So for next year, you would be applying for these grants, not saying that, there's a sacrifice here. We're going to take away from one in an event that we might get this grant. No, we would have this grant. So if we start applying this year, for next year, we won't be having this conversation.
So
all these projects will be covered under.
What I would recommend and suggest then to the council, if that's the direction you want to go in, at minimum, fund these good public projects, fund them all, so that we can make East Providence improvements that are going to benefit all of our children and the community. Fund all of this, and we'll look at whether or not there are any potential grants from the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank that would fund some of these projects. And if there are, we don't use the money, and it goes back into the capital improvement account. But to put your hope on the fact that we're going to win a grant, and if you're going to decide on public improvements based on your hope of winning a grant, that's not the best course of action in my eyes. But I'll let.
No, you're absolutely right, and I wouldn't. That wouldn't be the approach I would take. Again, if I'm applying for a grant for this year, it's for next year's budget. Right. So you would know at that point in time whether or not you have it. So you're not putting in hopes of, because if we put it in now, for an example, you get the results, or they'll tell you back in January, February whether or not it's been awarded to you. You know at that point in time, going forward, that you don't need money for these type of projects.
Oh, for the future. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's why we're making plans to apply for some of these other grants, and we're asking for grant matching money. The fire department was able to get $800 and some odd thousand. That is a huge benefit to our community as a whole. Public safety is going to be improved. We don't have to come up with that investment. But you don't know if you're going to get that. I would say you're absolutely correct, Councilman, and with our planning department, hopefully through this budget, gets brought back to full capacity, where we have a plan of 4, we have a director, and we also will have a new plan of 1. The goal is to really put a huge effort into marketing our city and to going after grant money. That goes through the planning department. So that is absolutely what we plan on doing with our city resources. Once our planning department is fully staffed, we will absolutely be looking to get more money for future projects. Mm-hmm. Now, for these projects, I think if you put them off for another year, you're hoping that you're going to get the money for the following year to make these projects happen. That may not happen. These are projects that we can get going this year to see to completion or to starting them this year. But I'll bring up our director if he wants to speak on some issues.
Really quick, Councilman, I think I know it's Mr. O'Rourke. You're probably talking to Sean O'Rourke. Yeah,
exactly.
I know him. And the Infrastructure Bank, and Malcolm probably knows, they make very specific grants for climate resiliency, sustainability. So that's something we'll be looking to explore. Mm-hmm. As the mayor said, even this week there was another round of grant requests coming out from DEM. To make properties readily available, municipal properties that you want to market. So there's always grant opportunities, and it's constantly coming up. But we're very aggressive exploring those. And just to step back, the way the capital budget works, and I'm learning too as I get here, it really starts with the department request into the planning department, who then present the capital request to the planning board. So there is a process where this capital plan is reviewed by another body before it comes to you. It's made through an advisory opinion from the planning board. It's not just the mayor and the department heads coming up with a list. It is reviewed by the planning board and made part of the budget. And you know, I look back, and when I was a city manager, we had no money for capital. There was literally no money for capital. And you're in a situation here where there's a substantial investment being made by the city on a recurring basis, which is really a tremendous improvement from what it was 15 to 20 years ago. And Malcolm, I think the reason why we're here is largely because of some of the charter changes that were put in place that require a certain percent of the budget from last year be included into the next year's budget for capital. So it's almost like a recurring built-in mechanism, and that's why you have balances build up over time. So, but your point is right. We have to manage what we can handle capacity-wise in terms of what the resources are being provided. So, and again, I'm also meeting with the planning staff to make sure that we take a more active role in monitoring the projects once they're approved by this body. So you're more accurately informed, more updated as far as where projects are. And, you know, if they're delayed for whatever reason, you'll be notified and things like that, more of a quarterly report. So we've already started to look at ways to manage that either through a simple spreadsheet or some simple software package.
And I'll add to that, and I appreciate the work the planning board does. You know, I've seen the good work that they've done in the past, and I'm glad they're there. Here's what people call me about. They call me about roads. They call me about sidewalks. They call me about schools. They call me about empty business storefronts, trash pickup sometimes. They don't call me about any of this stuff. Fields, no, I'll take that back. Field space is a big thing that I get calls about. So when I look at other stuff and I think about, when we mention the high school a lot, right, and I know we're planning to pay off a bond. You know, we talk about water. Water comes up a lot with residents, right? We know we've got, you know, a water pipeline going underneath the river that's half a century old that's going to go kaplooey at some point, right? So to me, knowing that stuff is hanging out there and being in the fortunate position that we're in, I wonder why we would allocate that money for other nice-to-have stuff. And I think it would be nice to have this stuff when we know that, you know, there could be some disasters peeking around the corner.
Yeah, no, that's certainly within your prerogative as a council to make those choices and those trade-offs. And I would point out that some of the things you don't probably hear about is because there's a street sweeper in here, right? You know, so people don't.
I'll grant that, right? Stuff we have to buy for sure.
Exactly.
Cop cars,
because they see that service being provided,
Yeah.
so, and that's because it's being funded.
Yeah.
There's a plow truck, there's police vehicles, there's an engine ladder. So, you know, there are things that you don't hear about because there's funding in place. But, you know, it is a careful balance, but you're the appropriating body. You have those, you know, the decision as far as what projects ultimately are funded and are pursued.
Malcolm, and Council President, through the Council President.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm, could you further expound upon the status of the money that we currently have in the Capital Improvement Fund and what it could be used for?
When they had the charter change and the Budget Commission came in, excuse me, they put in a fund balance policy, which is considered a best practice. It's a way to build up your, they call it rainy day fund, your fund balance, your reserve fund. And the way the mechanism is we're supposed to allocate 1% of the budget towards this. So if I'm going to bring in $100 million of revenue, my expenses only come to $99 million. So in theory, every year I'll have $1 million that goes into this fund balance. And once that reaches a certain level, which is 10%, and our budget's, say, $150 million. So we need to have 15 million. Once you reach the 15 million, then anything above and beyond that rolls into the capital fund. And I know, Council President, you've been through this with me a few times, but for everybody else's information, I did. And part of this was we kept calling it the sync fund because we kept talking about synchronizing the fiscal year. And we were putting $2 to $3 million a year away for that, to synchronize the fiscal year. When the school came up, we really had a choice. We couldn't do both, so we said, well, okay, we're going to build a school. So then those monies, which were $14-15 million, was now available to roll into capital. And the first thing the council did is said, well, we want to earmark $10 million of that for roads. And so they approved that. So in theory, every year you're going to have, say, about $1.5 million that should roll into this fund. Now, it gets a little tricky accounting for it, for the simple reason is that when we started 19, you don't know exactly how much money in 18 is going to roll into that. So some of this is a sort of a guesstimate. And when we first did this, we were saying, well, we have about 1.5 million. So we assume we're going to have that surplus. And so we're going to spend that in the current year, which could get you in trouble, but it's worked out for us. Now, what's happened is we've generated enough surplus to where we have enough money starting the year to pay for next year's capital. So the numbers I have are when we started 19, we have 7.9 million available. That doesn't.
I'm sorry, 7.9 million?
Yes.
What account is this in?
This is in the capital fund. The one that the list we gave you, the 17 million, that's part of that, but that's already been accounted for. So above and beyond that 17 million, let me back up just a sec. In the 17 million included the 19, which is in 19. So starting 19, we had 7.9, and in 19 we allocated 3.9 million.
So that leaves 4. That doesn't have a line item next to it. 4 million.
Is true.
Right. Okay.
Now, and that's for 19. Now, and so for 20, we were allocating, say, 3.7 million. So if the worst case scenario, we didn't put any money into that for 19 or 20, we'd be down to 300,000. But we know in theory, we should be putting at least 1.6 million away each year. And right now, the synchronization money has been also rolled over into that.
And how much is that's been rolled over of the former synchronization money? Because we allocated 10 million, and there was roughly 3 to 4 million that should have been remaining in that account.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the way the charter's written is that we have 15 million in fund balance, and so that's our safety net. And there was a big discussion when the Charter Commission was here, I think it was just voted on recently, is we're breaking that up into 2 sections. And one of it you can touch and draw down on for pretty easy. There's not a lot of restrictions.
Unrestricted.
Right, and I think there's a restricted piece.
Yeah.
So this is above and beyond that.
Okay. So how much of the former sync fund that we had that account was transferred over into that?
All of it.
No, I know. How much of it, though? What's the dollar amount?
I'd have to break that down because.
Well, if there was $13 million in the account, and we allocated $10 million for roads infrastructure, there's a balance of $3 million. Now, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Correct.
That was transferred over. But I don't know if that was the exact amount. So my question to you is, what's the exact amount that was remaining in that sync fund that was transferred or rolled over, I should say, that would be considered an unrestricted fund?
Correct.
That was rolled over into the capital.
Had to be about 3.
Well, I don't know if that was the exact amount. I'm saying between 3 and 4 million.
All right. Let me see if I can.
Because if I'm not mistaken, we had about 28 million when you include the capital and the sync. But how much of that was what, I'm not exactly sure.
So how much of it was available to be spent only on capital, and how much of it was available to be spent on?
Well, the money from the sync, the money that was from the former sync account would be unrestricted. And the money that we raise through capital will be restricted for capital projects, so.
Would be unrestricted except for the fact that, we've had, previous councils have had conversations that was where the bond repayment money was going
Exactly.
from the new school, right?
Exactly.
And I understand we're probably, a year from that, or we've got one more year coming in, based on what Mr. Luber was explaining the other night, right? Of, where that would be unrestricted. My big issue is we're probably at the tail end of a 10-year unprecedented economic boom. Unemployment rates don't stay low forever. Inflation doesn't stay at zero forever, right? Interest rates don't stay where they are forever. We're going to hit a point probably during the next few years where capital is going to be like the most valuable thing and tough to come by thing in the world. So I think we need to start thinking like that, especially knowing that we have all of these big things on the horizon that we're going to need to fix. It's not going to be easy to get loans when the capital shrinks up,
So from what I understand through Mr. Luber on Friday's conversation, there was about $2.3 million that was moved over because that fund no longer exists.
The 2.3 over the last couple of years has been allocated to additional capital. That's why our capital has gone from, say, 1.5 to almost 4 million because you added the 2.3 in. But to answer your question, I'm pulling this up. In 18, they moved to 2.3 into capital. So up until then, the amount in the sink fund was $13,475,851, which was it was 2.3 before. It was a little higher, but that was the number that had rolled over.
How much again? I'm sorry.
$13,475,851.
So that was the total amount that was in the account.
Correct.
And we took 10 million of that.
Correct.
So that leaves us 3.4 million. That 3.4 million is rolled over into the capital account.
That is correct.
Okay.
And some of that 3.4 million would have been allocated for 19 projects that were approved. Right. Okay.
Can I ask the director, mayor, council president, is it safe to say with the new school bond that the year synchronization attempt is over for quite a while? It isn't anything we'll be discussing in the...
That's correct.
Even distant future.
That's a $40 million bond.
Yes. You are correct, Councilman, as the mayor stated.
Yeah. So like Councilman Cahoon said, those are the calls I get. Fix the roads, fix the fields. We're concerned about water, the fields. If a scoreboard isn't something that, and a fence that, that's not something that I think we have to have, is difficult to do. You order it, you buy it. It's a physical object. Our guys can put a fence in, but we might have to get a company to do it. That's fine. So I think all that stuff can be done. I'm sitting here undecided about, do we want skating rinks? Do we want more gazebos? Do we want, right now, my time is that I can't get to every event in the city with all the concerts and things we do have. That's a good problem. But we have gazebo and concerts at Crescent Park. We have them at the Senior Center. We have Live Nation now. We have other events at Pierce Field. We have, for a city our size, we're a big city, but we're not Providence, Cranston, Warwick size. And we have a lot of great venues. So I'm tussling with, the priorities. Pretty soon we're going to be, the phones are ringing now about the water bills and those issues that we have to deal with. So I don't know. I can go to a concert at Crescent Park. I don't go by zip code. I'll go where the venue is and enjoy it. So those are all great things to have, but I'm not hearing a lot from the public about a lot of new bells and whistles. It's about keep and improve the quality of life in East Providence. And I think we're on a kind of a roll right now, but as Councilman Cahoon said, let's be a little careful for the future.
And as Councilman Cahoon said, right now, we've had an unprecedented run of capital when we've been spending, up to $4 million a year on capital. And you did mention the school, and I just want to point out that I'm looking at the debt service schedule, and the question is whether we start paying. We think we're going to go to bond in June of 21 because the school opens in September of 21. And so will the debt service start in 22 or 23? But either way, the debt service schedule that they sent to me actually today was $13.5 million, and that's the annual debt service. Now, we do believe we'll get reimbursed a large chunk of that. The superintendent has said that she thinks we'll get the 74%, but then I think the conservative number was 70, so that's what we've used. If we get more than 70, then maybe this gets reduced. But the total bond won't change. It'll still be $13.5 million, and our share is going to be about $6.1 million.
Okay.
And
Total, right.
Total.
It's a big nut, right?
Yes, it is.
And that's going to be a challenge for us, which is, to me, all the more reason that we look conservatively at these things like capital. Capital reserve is its own argument. We can't touch that. That's an emergency thing. Totally get that. But this other money that we've got, which is fantastic, I think we really need to be safe about how we choose to apply it. That's a lot of money.
The thing I think that we have to, as the elected leaders of the community, you've got to look at the whole picture when it comes to making improvements in our city. I think that high school is going to be incredible to attract new business to the community, new residents to the community. It's going to be something to be proud of. I just don't want to see us neglect other important projects or other things that could really benefit our community and our residents. So ultimately, you guys hold the cards on the decision you're going to make. I've made my pitch. I hope that not all of these projects will see the cutting knife, but all of these projects were carefully vetted, and we feel that all of them would enhance our community to make it more attractive to people wanting to live in here, work in here, and play in here.
I think, too, Mayor, Mr. President, if I'm right, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to see us neglect anything we currently have. This city has neglected a lot of these things through the years. We've heard this ad nauseum, from schools to streets to parks, you name it. For whatever reason, that's the past is the past. We're here now. So let's fix and maintain what we have, improve what we have. But as we look to newer things, I think I'd like to see more of a plan. I'm not saying you or anybody in particular. I'm saying myself. I want to come up with a gradual plan where it might be nice to have a skating rink and another entertainment gazebo. But right now, I'm pretty happy with what we have. I'm not happy with the condition of a lot of it. And we're doing a lot to get this stuff fixed. And so I think I'm kind of saying the same thing.
I mean, if you look at capital improvement-wise, out of that whole budget, $450,000 will get reimbursed because it's going to be money to do demolition work at Burnside and Hoppin. And that's something that really is going to benefit the community. We've had a public meeting. We took input from people. So that project right there, I think, is an important necessity. The building's been vacant for quite a time, and it's a burden on the rest of the residents, and they'd like to see something happen there. So the feedback we got was to subdivide it into different lots, sell it, and get some homes built on that property. The sprinkler at the library, that's a necessity. The Sweetland House exterior repairs and improvements, it's an eyesore. It's on our main road. That property gets used very heavily by our seniors, and it's seen every day by thousands of people who drive by, and look at that building. Is that what we want to be representing? I get Millie Morris calling me up saying, Bobby, when are we going to get this? When are we going to get this thing fixed over here? Millie, is that correct? That's correct. So the people that
I like that imitation, by the way.
I get those Bobby calls also.
The people that utilize the facility, the senior center, they have to look at that every day, and they're saying, "Well, my God, is this what the city thinks of its public infrastructure?" So that to me is important. Security in the city clerk and treasurer's office, I feel that's an important improvement that we can make, especially when you consider the amount of money. I was flabbergasted to know the amount of contacts and money that we take in, and there's really nothing in place. Skate park. I mean, we were fortunate enough to get that donation from the Kate Robb Foundation. I think it's something that we should invest in. We see the use that the skate park at Anomalise Park gets. I think it'd be a shame for us to not take advantage of the ramps that were donated to us. That's a $30,000 investment in your community. The field behind, and I think I sense that Councilman Cahoon and Councilman Roderick support this idea, just from the comments you made. But to be able to build a brand new sports field behind Riverside Middle School that would be utilized not only by the sport youth groups that reside in our city, but by the students that currently go to Riverside Middle School. That'd be, something to be proud of, that they could have, where they can have their soccer games, lacrosse, if that becomes a thing at the middle school. I mean, middle school sports, I think, are very important to the development of our children. As a father, I see that importance. $70,000 in park upgrades. That came out of us wanting to have some money set aside to make those improvements. If I get a call from the councilman in Ward 1 and he says, hey, look, this particular playground needs some work, or maybe we can get a new light here. Now we have that seed money to get that thing done for you if you get the complaint from the constituent. Right now, if you call me and say, hey, I need a new light here, I'm going to have to scramble to find that money. So to have that $70,000 earmarked would be to make those projects and those improvements in your district when you need it, when you get complaints. Basketball court, without a question. I mean, for those of you, I think all of you have been down there during the summer. I think it's awesome to see all these kids come together, all these different people from different backgrounds come together and enjoy time with each other, and it really is something that's keeping our youth engaged. The gazebo, at the pavilion, if you need to cut that, by all means, go ahead. I think it'd be a huge enhancement to our facility at Pierce. I think it'd be a huge enhancement to our summer program, and it would be an enhancement to the arts community in our city as another place centrally located where they can run, children's theater and live shows, and even as a place where people could sit under when they're watching their kids play basketball. So these are all things. The Taunton Avenue drainage improvement, I mean, that's something that we want to get done. That's a major capital improvement.
I would say personally, from my own point of view, is before we proceed with recording the amount of increase that we've already talked about, is for me personally taking the $2.3 million and putting it right back in and working off of that. That leads about $1.6, $1.9 million. And then we can have that discussion. And that's my own personal opinion. And I've listed, what projects that I personally would like to see come to fruition under this. But I would like to see that $2.3 million go right back into the fund where it came from.
Look, you're the council, you make the decision. I think it's a disservice.
Others might think otherwise.
I think it's a disservice to the people you represent. The money is there for capital improvements. The money is there. The money is there to make our city shine, and you have the ability to put it to good use. Now, if you decide that's what you want to do, so be it. But when you look at some of these important projects, Taunton Avenue drainage improvement, it's a necessity.
But I'm not saying that's the one I'm cutting.
Well, I'm just
saying
if you look at all
2.3 go in, and then I'll leave the 1.6, 1.9 in there for other projects. I didn't say which project. All I'm saying is not all the projects.
Okay. I mean, look, some of these things we can't do without. I would hate to see us cut the match money for DEM. I mean, that's a way to really...
But we're not cutting anything, right? I mean, this money's there. The money's going in the capital fund next year. Nothing prevents us by way of resolution or whatever in the coming year, should you identify, this is a real priority, guys. You guys got to pay attention to this. Nothing prevents the council from saying, okay, now we're going to identify $500,000, $1 million, whatever it might be, from that capital fund for this effort, right? My put is, why identify it all for something right now, knowing the landscape is going to be changing so much in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? That's where I'm going.
And when we talk about wants and needs, as we go through listing some, if not most of these projects you just listed, I mean, the first thing that will come to my mind as a need, and I'm not saying one way or the other what I'm going with this is, I mean, the fire department is looking to replace cardiac monitors. I think that would be more of a need than having something else, John. That, to me, that's more of a need.
Yes, so the cardiac monitors were mentioned by the fire department. We received that grant, and what we had asked the council, and they had asked the council, was to take the money that was going to be allocated for this was $40,000 that was going to be allocated for one of those cardiac monitors. It's the type of monitors that run in, that they're in the rescue, that you tie up your patient.
I'm saying that's more of a, that would be more of a need than some of the other things that are being health and safety than some of the other things that have been mentioned in this evening, the way I just personally look at it. And again, I mean, that's, the way I look at it personally. The council, I'm sure, has their own opinion on this as well.
So for me personally, I think there's a lot of great things, and
they're all great.
my colleagues emphasize on all the importance, and obviously moving forward and making the city great, I think, is important. Also, my concern comes, and this has been echoed a couple of times already, is the list that we have of ongoing projects, and I know that we're working on those now. Some of those, or a good amount of those, we're trying to keep in-house to have for some cost savings. And then some also proposed are for in-house work for additional cost savings. Our DPW only has a certain allotment of men who will continuously try to meet those needs that we're asking of them, whether it's overtime or not. So I'd like to see a lot more get done in these past ones that go back to 2016 that are still in progress or ongoing, who are now just getting RFPs or are awaiting, they're holding for future studies. In moving forward, I would, and I know you've touched base on this, Mayor, but I think it's important when we come with these capital improvement budget requests that we have a plan. Right, much like when our developers come to the planning board and the planning department, they have a plan laid out. They know where they want to do a project. They anticipate really what the cost is. Here, it's kind of all a guesstimate. We're really not sure what the cost is going to be. It could be plus $10,000, minus $10,000 on the project. We're not sure if we're getting grants, but we're going to apply for grants. So there's a lot of unknowns in a lot of these requests, and though I think they're great requests, I'd like a little bit more concrete, definitive when presenting a request to the council for approval, especially when there are substantial amounts of money involved in those capital improvements. Again, other than having, an example I'm going to give is the fire department, right? They asked the council for $1.7 million or for engine or $750, and then they were sitting on that money, waiting for another year to kind of build up their bank before they even made an investment in a vehicle. Meanwhile, trucks break down, things are out of services, and then an emergency situation comes up where they come before the council asking for money. Well, I mean, we've allocated money year after year. Now, how they appropriate that money is really, we're trusting the departments to make good use of that money and not ask for, like we call year after year, this is a wish list. Well, it can't be a wish list. It has to be an implement list. We're going to come with the project, and we're going to implement that project within a 18-month window. We know that these things cannot be done within 12 months because there's just too many. It would require an additional hands and services within these departments to facilitate all this action and to oversee it. So I think it's a little overseeing, too much, to be honest, when we haven't, like Pierce Field, I think Pierce Field needs a lot of work. And again, it goes to all the neglect in all the areas, and it has nothing to do with this administration. But when you have last year, we have capital budget improvements from 16, 18, and 19, an additional 4 this year in our capital budget to do. I mean, how are we going to finish all these? How are we going to prioritize what's important? How are they all going to get accomplished? And the next year, there'll be more, there's always a need annually for upkeep. And then is Pierce Field now going to be the park that gets all the attention, kind of like the Kimberly Rock has yearly always been maintained, which it should be, but then something else, when a focus on one area gets a lot of attention, that means they're lacking in other areas in the community. And then we get into this ripple effect where now another park or another infrastructure building is now become desolate because we've been focusing just on getting this area beautiful, but everything else around it is deteriorating. So that's my concern when we're doing too much and not able to maintain across the board, like the streets, right? We put all that money into the streets. Well, we're going to need to keep maintaining that so that all that $10 million that we allocated in good faith to make our streets better drivable, look better, aren't going to decay and fall apart with potholes in 5 to 10 years, and then have to have this conversation again that we didn't keep up with our streets via maintenance. So that's going to be part of a capital improvement budget that we're going to have to put into the budget once the streets are finished to continuously maintain, whether we're doing, liquid asphalt over them to crack any seals, whatever it is. But we're going to have to allocate money for maintenance of a lot of these projects moving forward.
And Councilwoman, Kimberly Rock is being done by private money. That is being upgraded by the Little League Association.
They help fund that?
They do fund that.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know how much comes from the city. I'm sure the city does something, but I know a lot of that comes from, because I help with the cleanup.
Okay.
So I'm involved over there. And I know through their concession stands, they raise money. Mm-hmm. So they do a lot. They have a crew of people who rake the fields out. I don't know about mowing. I would think that the city takes care of cutting the grass and all.
It does.
But a lot of that also, I mean, that's, comes from private money as well.
Well, like I said, these projects are going to benefit your constituents as well as mine. We all share the same constituents, and you make the determination what you want to do. It was vetted by our department heads. We presented it to the planning board. The planning board vetted it. We presented it to you. You make that determination what you feel is important, not important. For me, I will live with whatever it is you guys cut. And if you feel that you're not, willing to support some of the projects, that's understandable. I don't think it's a fair representation to look at the existing list of projects and to use that as a reason not to support some of these new projects. The existing list of projects were projects that came 2 years before we ever took office, okay? The $750,000, that was a plan apparently that was approved by the prior council. That would have been $750,000 for one allocation, waiting on another $750,000 in this council's allocation to purchase one ladder truck. And what we did instead, because we couldn't do anything at the time, we couldn't order a truck because we didn't have the money committed. But what we did instead, that was poor planning. Mm-hmm. But what we did instead is we took the existing money, we came to you, and we said, hey, can we allocate this money to purchase some used equipment? And we did. And can we allocate this money to make the first year lease payment on a brand new ladder truck? And you said yes, and we did. can we allocate this money to purchase a new rescue? You said yes, and we did. So our decisions being made in the best interest of the people of East Providence? Absolutely. With our input, your input, and we're doing what's right. Now, these projects, to me, it'd be difficult to find which ones you want to cut and which ones you don't want to cut. But ultimately, is the goal that you're going to say, listen, we're just going to cut the money and you decide which ones you want to work on, or are you going to look at all these projects and cut out projects? I'm not sure.
Well, first, I'm not blaming you by any means of these existing projects that we have on the book. What I'm saying is we have enough on the books right now that to introduce more would just be that much of a headache to those departments. We just don't have the capacity to do all this. And it's been said with the roads that we know we have a limitation on roads as to how many roads we can manage per the season. Because of the manpower we have. We just don't have the manpower. So I'm not placing blame as far as, who's responsible. We're just saying that right now, whether it's allocated or not, whether it's, being drawn down, we got $14.4 million on the books, and we got an additional $4.4 million that we want to include to the 14. So we're looking at $19 million. And all I'm saying is, if we're having a hard time doing the $14 million, well, just imagine what it's going to be like when it becomes $18 million. That's all I'm saying. And it doesn't necessarily negate the fact that I'm eliminating everything on here by any means. It's just a lot of projects for this city to handle.
Mr. President, or Mr. Solicitor, is it my understanding that tonight is the last night that we could add to an item in terms of the budget schedule going forward to have a final budget? Cuts could be made beyond tonight, maybe by Monday's meeting, but
So,
there were 2 or 3 items we had talked about adding to.
So with the help of the assistant solicitor who was here in my stead over the last 2 weeks, which I want to publicly thank him for, we discussed this before this meeting. So it's my understanding that by tomorrow, you have to advertise any additions to the budget that you intend to make.
So that's what I'm saying. Tonight, we would have to vote on additions.
You have to figure out what additions you might want to add to the budget, and the city clerk has to then advertise that prior to the next meeting. Now, when I read the charter, I believe that means that you should be as specific as possible. In speaking with the assistant solicitor, there's also some wiggle room. You could say, you're going to add to every line of the budget. I don't think that would be a little unfair, because that gives you a little bit of leeway into adding or adding to budget items. But but if you already have an idea of what you're adding to, you should make that specific tonight. But yes, this is the last night for you to make additions. You can always make cuts, but you can only add, and then there has to be another public hearing.
So,
maybe Mr. Moore has that.
If you have any kind of, can you provide us with a reading on your writing that you have as far as increases, so we can actually vote on it this evening? Then?
Excuse me, it's increases and new line items. So if you not only add it, but if you have a new line item that was not included in the original budget.
Correct, and I'll read you the section it says.
May I just stop for 1 second, Malcolm? May I just request a quick break here?
Yes,
Mr.
I
President.
can use one.
All right.
We have a motion for... Thank you. So if we can just proceed in the manner of Malcolm giving us a list of what's increased at this point in time, and the council, we should agree on those increases and any line items that we need to add as well. This is the last day for any line item increases and for any additional items that we would like to add.
The increases are 2 in city council.
Hold on one moment, Malcolm. Okay. I'm sorry.
$32,175.
What is this now? City
Two
council?
transfers for the
32,000?
audit and the legal.
Okay, so that's not a total of 32,000.
Yes,
No, we have legal, which I thought was 75,000.
right.
No, he's saying that the audit was one line item, the legal was another line.
Okay,
Yes.
but what's
What's 32?
Sorry, Fred, thank you. The 32 number is the audit number, the 75 number is the legal number.
Oh, you got it together.
Correct, Malcolm?
Correct.
Okay. And those aren't straight increases, they come from another line item.
Transfer.
To Mike's point, we have to add them as line items.
So that's even, 32,000 even, 75,000 even?
No.
32,175. The 75 is even.
Thank you.
Is that it for that you have so far?
Well, hold on one second. I know I've got a couple more, but I had it.
Under the council.
That was all I had under the council.
That's all I have for the council, but I just want to make sure I don't miss anything.
Okay. So, council members, are we good with that increase at this point in time? Does anyone have any objections?
Council President, if I may, I
Yes.
noticed an ongoing line item in all of the budget departments that we do not have in a council, and I think it might pose useful in the coming year, and that's a professional service line item. In our miscellaneous, we have a professional service line item here of $100,000. Each department has allocated their own for their department, what they felt was their needs. So I'm asking that the council have the opportunity to have a $50,000 transferred into a line item for the council. In case of the event, we may need it for additional services towards the council.
And again, that's a transfer?
Transfer, yes, sir.
Okay.
Where is it transferring from?
The miscellaneous, which is page 39.
And Councilwoman Souza, just, we had left that line alone then, under professional services? Yeah, we did. We did. So that's on page 39, that's line 53403.
246143 is the actual.
I'm not seeing that.
There's no actual, there's,
Professional services?
yeah,
Yes,
page 39?
yes,
Yep, I got it.
I would support that.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. All
So
right,
that's the third one,
that's the third one,
50,000?
yes.
Madam Clerk, are we able to identify in the advertisement those items that are actual increases and those items that are simply new line items, like money moved from one place in the budget to another, right? So as not to give people sticker shock, I think we want to be clear, those are not increases in the bill, those are,
The allocations?
yes.
That's all for me.
And given that that's it at this point in time, I'd like to have a
For
roll
the city council?
for the city
Are
council.
we going to do each one or vote at the total? What's the,
I would do each one.
Each one? Okay. So, Madam Clerk, may we have a vote on the increase? You have the total amounts for each line item. Legal, 75,000, audit, 32,175 out, and professional services, 50,000.
Yes.
May I ask one question, Mr. President?
Please.
Are we voting on those individual items, or are we voting on the department budget? The individual items, the department? Okay, so we need that department number And we just gave Malcolm another curveball. So I wanna make sure we-
Okay, so the department is 157,175.
157,175.
Yes.
So, Mr. President, I move to approve the city council budget, line 100, of that number that Malcolm just provided.
So we have approval on the floor right now in the amount of the increase of the city council budget to $157,175.
Mr. President, in as much as these are mostly transfers.
It's a transfer.
Not
It's
necessarily an increase, so I would
No,
second
you're
the
not
motion.
getting a pay increase.
Right.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Through the chair, I have a
Yes.
question for the solicitor. Okay, so we're only going to put increases in at the moment.
Yes.
Okay, all right, never mind then, because you were talking about type of.
Increases and any additional line items that were not inclusive.
Okay.
Yeah, so just so you know, you're not voting to approve this, you're just voting to advertise this. So
Right.
this is, so.
Correct.
This is subject to change at a later date.
So second passage would be on the 14th?
The final vote, right.
Okay.
So this is, you're just putting the public on notice that you intend to increase the budget line items by that amount.
Transfer the budget.
Transfer or increase.
So departments that don't have increased line items or new line items, we can skip.
May I ask quickly before because there's not a line item in here for the school department, lest we forget that one, I would like to move that we include in the advertisement that the council intends to restore the full request by the school department, which is a reversal of the proposed reduction of $950,000.
Second.
So the motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon to reverse the $950,000 back into the school department's budget. It's seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
The next one I have is canvassing to add the one FTE, total of $61,805.
All right, so canvassing, we're on page 27, section 450, page 27,
And
section
Malcolm,
450.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
No, go ahead. You're
Just
good.
to ask a clarifying question, the $61,805 figure includes the increase, the commensurate increase in benefits.
That
et cetera.
is salary and benefits.
Okay.
Salary, medical, life, dental, MERS, FICA, employee assistance.
So
All those
my-
items go up a little.
So my concern is obviously an ongoing budget. I did reach out to the canvassing board today to get some further information because what they, canvassing board and the department, is that they have this work that needs to be done and that they just need somebody there to be able to do it, and they've requested a full-time person. If it's for productivity, I would suggest that it might be more cost-effective on the city's part to have another part-time person in that role. If their part-time person with overtime is averaging about $18,000 to $19,000, and we add another part-time person who's coming in similarly, we're still under the 61,000 annually, which we know the 61,000 is going to increase on an annual basis with all of the medical longevities because it is a union position. And I feel as though 4 people is obviously more productive than 3 people. If there's a sick call out, if somebody's on vacation, you have always 3 people in an office versus back down to 2 in case, in an event that there's something that happens and somebody needs to be out of that office. Again, my personal opinion, trying to think, be fiscally responsible, and thinking of also the benefit of the office for its, its production. That's how I would suggest moving forward. I don't know if the council, we haven't really talked about that. It kind of something that came up after the meeting that we had last week. I thought more about it. I did not get a call back from anybody from canvassing after making that suggestion to them. So I don't know how they feel about it.
Mr. President, Councilwoman, I think we could always reduce come Tuesday. So if we leave it this way, I did hear from 2 of the canvassers today, said they still preferred the original plan that we had discussed.
That's interesting that I made the inquiry and that you got a phone call. Interesting. But
So
hopefully
I
they'll
think
call
to be on the safe side, we can only add tonight.
Sure.
And I'm willing to listen and be open on it Tuesday if it works out better to reduce it. So be it. We can ask them to be here to discuss it. But if we do it now, well, we're not doing reductions now. We're just doing
advertised
advertised additions, right? So I think we should leave it alone until Tuesday.
Okay. I just wanted to have the conversation so that people could think about it in a different light and maybe sit on it, and it just seems more.
Monday.
Monday, I think I said Tuesday. Even though it's a holiday, we are meeting Monday because of the schedule of advertising, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So that's good with you, Councilwoman?
As the council wishes.
Okay.
So that would be, basically what we would be doing then is we're going to advertise our intent to increase it, if we choose later to cut it, at least we've advertised an intent to increase it and people can come speak on that behalf. I mean, I would like to, since we're going to have a public hearing and you've made the inquiry, I think it's only right if, they show up at a public hearing and answer your question.
Right, I agree.
Okay. All right, so
that's 61,805.
Anyone want to translate that into a motion?
I'll so move.
Hold on one second. We have to.
The bottom line number.
Let's hit the bottom line number for that, I think.
Okay.
So Malcolm, with the proposed 3 full-time FTEs, what would that?
You're increasing it $61,800.
What's the total?
The total budget.
Department?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please.
302?
It'd be 323 something. Oh, no, because we cut other things. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that's right. We
Yeah,
did.
that's the.
I keep writing the wrong one.
Okay.
You'd have to subtract all those cuts. We don't really need that tonight.
Well, because you got to do the FICA and all that as well, right?
Well, that's what he did. That's in the number.
Oh, it's already in there.
But we do, if we're increasing the overall budget, right, if it increases $1, we have to say that it's increasing $1.
Okay.
Net.
Just so there's no confusion for anyone here, there is a meeting Tuesday. It's a regularly scheduled city council meeting. So we are here Tuesday, but Monday is the budget, second budget hearing, correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, the budget's 261,103. Adding the 61,805, you get $322,908.
And what about the reductions that we also made? So, for example, special elections, I know we took that out of there.
But we weren't, I don't think those were ever done at hearings, because that was the question I brought up when I talked to the solicitor about the decreases, because in the city council, there was a decrease in stipend, but we didn't talk about that. We were only talking about the increases.
Right. The
So we
decrease
have to
would be the next.
advertise only the potential increase in the department. Okay. Okay, so be ready for questions, because you'll get questions, so, okay.
So the total, again, is 322,908? Is that correct?
322,908.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Section 511, subsection 3 of the Charter, before inserting any additional item or increasing any item of appropriation, it must be caused to publish a notice setting forth the nature of the proposed increase and fixing a time and place not less than 5 days after publication.
That's fair.
Okay,
So,
all right.
So, given the number that Malcolm just provided with us, I move to advertise our intent to adjust that number accordingly.
I'll withdraw my earlier motion and second that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know
No,
I had one
that's
on the
fine.
table.
No, I second.
So we have a motion
More accurate.
Okay.
on the floor at this point in time for the $322,908 by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilman Roderick. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Malcolm, the next increase, please.
is for 605, building inspection, $3,000.
Hold on one moment. Building
Put that in for
inspections.
telephone?
That was for mobile communications,
Yes.
mobile cellular phones.
What page is that, please? Building inspect,
65.
65?
So that was the line that was zero. And
Correct.
we said should be something.
Okay, section 605, building inspections, page 65 we're on.
Make a motion to approve the $3,000 to line item 54403.
Excuse me.
And I will second that with the understanding that that will take our department number then to 845,718.
I'm sorry, what line item was that again, please?
The line number is 54403. It's about two-thirds of the way down.
Okay, telephone communication? Yep.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
It's going to take the number to what?
If we increase by 3,000, my calculation is 845,718.
Okay.
That's what we have here. Is that a motion, Councilman?
I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you made the
Councilman Souza
motion?
made it.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor right now to increase the Section 605 building inspections from $842,718 to $845,718. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next line item, Mr.
And
Moore?
a like item on engineering, 610, $900 for the phones.
67.
Which would take us to 724,942.
Okay, so that is Section 610, Section 610, page 67.
What was that total number? I'm sorry.
The final number for the department? 724,942.
942?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion on the floor, Mr. President?
There isn't.
Make a motion to approve the increase of $900 to line item 610-54403 for telephone and communications, bringing the department total to $724,942.
Okay, would anyone like to second that motion?
And that motion, again, just to not nitpick, but that's our motion of our intent to advertise that number. Yes, so then I will second.
So we do have a motion and it's seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next department, Malcolm?
General government, $15,000 for grant matching funds, an additional $15,000.
General government.
Is that miscellaneous? Oh, no.
That's miscellaneous, page 38. 39.
Thanks, Malcolm.
So this 15,000 increase is actually a transfer, not an increase per se in the budget itself. It's the grant matching that was reallocated from the mayor's office that had a grant matching. Thought it'd be better to keep them all together in one line item.
True, but it's an increase in that line item, and I think we were putting all
Right.
increases in.
Sure, but I'm just,
So, right,
I'm just
so,
letting,
yeah.
for the public, it's
Right. So-
it's a reallocation of 15,000 from one department to another. for
So
the
actually,
same-
that department would not, well. it
The
would-
increase, we would talk about the
Right.
decrease, we wouldn't have to.
Correct, so it would increase that
Sure.
by 15,000.
Okay.
So then that final number would be 6,798,256. That would be the number we had to advertise, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I so move the advertisement for the 15,000.
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Getting tired.
Malcolm, can I ask one question? I don't know that we ever ran this to ground. Permission of the President, if I may. On the debt service page 41, we had the discussion with regard to the TIF bond. I think we come to the conclusion that the TIF bond line of 818,750 did not belong in the list of bond expenditures there, correct? Was there, I know that there was a discussion of some revenue associated with that potential expense that would need to be taken out of somewhere else?
But it would be a reduction of revenue. So you're just taking that 800,000 out of expense and out of revenue when we're just moving it over here.
It's one-to-one?
Yes. Any additional money, it's very possible, and I think it is, that it'll generate more than the debt service. But if that's the case, then it can be transferred back into the general fund.
Okay, so we do not need to advertise an increase anywhere else because of that reduction here?
Correct, they're just reductions.
Okay, so we'll leave that one alone. I'm sorry if I've confused the issue. I just want to make sure. Was there anything else?
That's all I have.
I'm not tracking anything else as far as advertising increases.
So where is that 818,000, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, that's in the debt service line.
Right.
Which is,
No, where's it going to, considering that we're moving out? Because that, wherever it's going to has to be increasing. That should be advertised as well, right?
Well, no, that's in a special revenue, so that doesn't show up in the general fund.
Another special account?
Yes. Oh, and one other item, if I may, was when I spoke to Councilman Morato, in the water budget, we had an increase and a decrease, but if we're only doing increases, there was through the HR payroll program, these 5 or 6 items are supposed to automatically be populated, but a few were missed. So there was a stipend of $13,000 that was supposed to be added, and then we had expenses of $165,000 that was going to be reduced. And we talked about that at the last meeting.
What department is this?
Water.
Oh, water.
I do recall that.
Right.
And I didn't take good notes.
And so if we're talking increases,
Well, I
there
did.
was a $13,000 in stipends, and then we can come back and there's a reduction.
Is that wastewater?
Water. That was on, I've got page 96.
96.
So then, for the sorry, I'm sitting back, Fred. So for the purposes of the advertisement, what we would have to advertise is that line item potentially increases to What'd you say it was? $13,703,474.
Correct.
Okay, I just had a different number, and I had a decrease for some reason. Maybe
We do
I missed
have a
out on something. I had
decrease in there,
$10,525,474.
And that is, if you go down to utilities, 56,215, that number, what, last year was 165.
Yep.
The budget was supposed to be 140 this year, but it was added. So we have to reduce 165,000. But to be consistent, we've only put increases in. So we'll come back at the next meeting.
Yeah, because I had that for 140, that line item.
Right.
I'm tracking that.
Okay.
I'm tracking that. Yeah.
So do we need to vote on this as well, then?
We need to vote on the increase because we are increasing that line. However, we are acknowledging it will ultimately decrease because it's a math error.
All right, so what's the total number again, 10 million?
Total number would be $10,703,474.
What was the individual number?
13,000 under stipends. So I move to approve.
Okay.
That advertising that potential increase.
Okay. Would anyone like to second that motion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. That was a
Was it thoughtful?
There's a lot of
It was
thought put in that.
Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
Does that conclude the increases, Malcolm?
So all the increases I show.
Okay.
What about
So-
the ADP? What about ADP? Remember that was reallocated from one department to another department? Does that need to be advertised?
No, because that was done in the mayor's.
That was in the mayor's proposed, so we're okay. Okay. Thank you.
And any,
Good catch.
Mr. President, the only thing I would add, and just for a quick discussion, we talk about phone calls we got, and I get very few phone calls on this whole budget process. I mean, we had, what did we meet last week, 4 nights past 11 p.m. I'm sure they've been televised. Got very, very few calls. Got a couple general calls, but I did receive 2 or 3 today, and I at least owe it to these constituents to bring it up as a discussion, and that's the account for the EPCAT that we were talking about. They had been getting $30,000 for forever from the city, and it was proposed to go to 15, and we're leaving it at that. I can go either way with this, but hearing from the people who called me today and hearing from Director Roy tonight, I mean, there are a lot of services there for East Providence residents, from birth almost to death. They're doing a lot of services for people in the community. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of those services may be services that we would have to absorb as a city if they weren't around. So if everyone's okay with the 15,000 instead of the 30, I'm not going to make a big issue about it, but I felt an obligation to at least bring it up for a brief discussion.
and thank you for mentioning that, Councilman, because I'll tell you, I wasn't fully aware. I knew to a certain extent the type of work that they did, but I wasn't fully aware that the commitment they have to this city as a whole. And when I look at the bottom line of $5.5 million for East Providence alone, I had to second guess my initial thought on this as well. And although they service 10 other cities, my first inclination was, maybe we shouldn't finance as much or give as much because of the other cities that are involved. But then I looked at the total cost, and then more importantly, I thought to myself, does it really matter where the people are from that we service? If somebody's in need for one reason or the other, does it matter whether they're from East Providence or from Providence or North Kingston. I think the service alone speaks volume for what they do. And, you know,
I might add to that, there were 30,000 East Providence incidents that were serviced. There may be duplications there. Maybe some people needed services 3 or 4 times, but there were at least 30,000 efforts for East Providence people. We're talking about meals and Head Start and heating assistance, and there's a health and safety component there. And the people who called me are people that I respect, and so it gave me cause to have a second thought about it, a second opinion.
May I recommend that we, given that we have to take the final vote anyway, perhaps we advertise our intent to potentially increase that line pending further discussion and decision? Because if we don't do that tonight, then we cannot increase it, but we can always not increase it later, right? If my logic is flawed there, then, so then what we would be recommending there, and I'll make this motion, but I'll capture it here. So the intended increase is of, under miscellaneous, under 900, the EBCAP line, which is the very first one, from 15,000 to 30,000, which would take our amended total to $6,813,256, unless I missed my calculation.
If that's a motion, I would second that.
I'm sorry, what was the total amount?
I want to just verify that and make sure Malcolm's checking my math.
Okay.
We had increased that budget line previously by 15,000. This would be an additional 15,000. So then we had gone to 6,798,256. The additional 15,000 would take us to 6,813,256. Yes. So then I will make that motion for that advertisement.
I'll second that. And if there are...
What's the increase in the motion on again? I'm sorry.
15,000, restoring it back to 30.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, or if we're wrong, and people come out Monday and are opposed to this, then I will remain open to the discussion. But that's how I feel about it right now.
We don't advertise, we can't have a discussion, right? So
we have a motion on the floor and second?
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
For the purpose of having discussed at the next meeting, I'll say aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Ms. Rossi, did you want to come up and speak? I did not close public comment.
I just wanted to make mention, I don't know if you've considered that the city of East Providence sold them the building that they're in for $1. They pay 0 taxes, and if they were elsewhere, would the burden be there? Do they use our services? Do they ever call for rescue? Do they ever call for police? They're here, and in kind, we do provide them a service as well. They get paid for their services. It's not like they are giving away all these services. The child care they pay for. He mentioned the meals at the senior center. Those elderly people pay for their meals. So I just wanted to make you aware of it, and Dennis comes up here when it's time for CDBG money and when it's time for funding, and he always does a really good job representing, but somehow neglects to mention the other side where we actually do our part as well. And for years and years and years in that building, our rec center, our recreation department was squeezed out of more and more space to the point where we couldn't even be there anymore, and we were paying probably 2/3 of the utilities. So, and I'm not cold-hearted. I definitely, I would, anything this community needs, I'm behind it, but they are a business, and we do support them as well. And if that $15,000 could be used for something like in our own schools, I would prefer to see the money go there. That's just my 2 cents on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll get a chance to rebuke.
Yes. If I may, I'll be very brief. I just want to make a couple of factual comments. The city was paying 1/3 of the utilities for the building. We are grateful for the city services that we do receive. At the time that the building was transferred to us, it was very clear that the city had many, many other priorities in order to move forward and effectuate its budget. And so consequently, when we took over the building, we were able to then put in all of the resources to put a new roof, a new heating system, new windows, et cetera, et cetera. So as example, when I went to the Champlin Foundation, they wouldn't give us funding if it wasn't a building that we owned. And by the way, we own it, but the city has a right of first refusal. If we ever want to leave the building, the city can buy the building back for $1. So that's always been in place also. And at the time the building was transferred to us, the library was still there and the rec department was there. There was an active movement to have the library and recreation go elsewhere. I know this because I was there. Recreation, there's a bond passed. Unfortunately, nothing happened in the future about that, but the library did move on. So we did take on the building. I thought we were good stewards with the recreation department. They paid 1/3 of the utilities, never paid any rent, but that was part of the agreement. And the bottom line is the services speak for themselves. Leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, given the testimony we just received from Mrs. Rossi and Mr. Roy, I wonder if we might, again, Sam, if there's any way that we can kind of ram the point home in this advertisement that these are all of the potential increases. The council has not decided whether to make these increases or not. We're simply advertising potential increases so as to allow for public comment, and we will make the decision in accordance with the schedule we've already published.
We can,
Increase/transfer, maybe.
Yeah.
Malcolm, just for the record, we're all set with the increases at this time as far as what we had discussed?
Me too.
So going forward, I have a recommendation here that I would like to eventually submit to the council as well for an increase in the capital improvement. And although it's not on here, this is my own personal not my own personal project, but it's the dog park that you all heard me talked about and so many times in the past, which is coming to fruition. It's actually located at Hunts Mill at this point in time. It's not open. We utilize an existing space that's already there. DPW had cleared that space out. The city had also put in a couple of benches at this point in time. And one of the things that I wanted to have for this particular dog park and set some money aside for, which will eventually pay for itself over time, is a key fob system. And the key fob system is essentially that first, before you get a key fob, you have to come and register your animal. If you're interested in having utilizing the dog park, you would get access to a card. That card may cost, I haven't come up with a cost at this point in time, but I'm looking at possibly $30 for the year, say. So over time, that will pay for the $6,000 that I will be requesting from the council for the key fob system, and that's all in. That's the key, the card holders of, the cards, the key fob system, the mechanism that goes on the gate in itself, and in order to get access to that key fob, you would have to register your dog with the city clerk as it is at this point in time. So all your animal vaccination shots would have to be up to par. You would need all that. And then you would pay for a key fob, and that key fob will give you access to the dog park. This dog park is for East Providence residents only. So we're down the road from there, on Newport Avenue or off of Newport Avenue, you have Slater's Park. There's a dog park there. From what I understand, sometimes there's a overage of dogs and animals in that dog park. This isn't going to be an area where people just come from other parts of the city, other parts of different states, either from Pawtucket or Massachusetts, and be able to have access to this park. So normally, in order for you to have access to this park, you need a key fob system. I'm in process of putting a board and commission together, which eventually will come hopefully soon within the next month or so. But you would, when you register your vehicle, get a key fob, and you use that to get in and out the dog park. Now, is anybody going to be there to police this as far as people going in and out or putting your pet over the fence? Well, good luck in doing that. But this is something that's ongoing at this point in time, and I will request from the council for this capital improvement, $6,000 that will eventually pay for itself by selling these key fobs for about $30, and over time, I would like to see every year annually as we pay for the system, that money goes to, say, the animal shelter going forward. Mayor?
I think that's a marvelous idea. I support that wholeheartedly. I'd like to thank the DPW crews who have done a lot of work in putting that vision of yours together. I think it's going to be fantastic once we officially open it. I know people have been using it, but I know you're waiting on doing a grand opening. The question I wanted to ask about was, I just want to make sure somewhere in this budget that we have the match money for the fire department grant that they just were awarded. I know that in the cardiac monitor section, we had asked for $40,000. We're asking now to really eliminate that item and add a new item that would say grant match money for the fire department. So I guess that would be something that, is that something you would add in? Because the total, what was the total match on that? $80,722 is what we need to match our portion of the grant. And that's leveraging $800,000 in federal FEMA money to purchase cardiac monitors and fire radios.
So just a question, are we purchasing everything in one calendar year with that money, or is there a time limit on when we can use that grant?
There's a strict period of performance of 1 year.
1 year from the day that we received the grant?
Correct.
And what was that date?
The 20s, I have to get that.
A month ago? I mean, I don't know the exact.
It's about a month, not even a full month.
Awarded on 9/23/19, and our period of performance end date is 9/22/20.
Okay.
We already have those funds transferred over to us yet or no?
No,
Not yet.
the system just started. They went to a whole new web-based system for FEMA, and they still haven't completed it yet. But the award is in our FEMA Go account. They just haven't set up the process to start drawing funds. But we're already working on getting the quotes for the equipment.
So what I would ask the council is if we can change that line, we can rename it, or create a new line in the capital improvement that would say fire department match grant, 80,000, whatever the number was, 762.
80,722.
That's correct. If we can do that, so that we can ensure that we're...
Which one is it?
So we'd like to remove...
44, yep.
Page 44, we'd like to remove or eliminate fire department, replace cardiac monitors, because we no longer need that. And what we'd like to do instead is have a new line that would say fire department match grant, or FEMA match grant money, which would be 80,722.
22.
Which is less than what was there before.
Well, no.
It's about 40,000 more.
Yeah.
Because we were asking for, this original ask was to
Allocate
purchase
40.
one.
Oh, one, okay.
Yeah. This new grant will give us, I think, 13, you said, 13 cardiac monitors
In additional.
and portable
to other
radios.
stuff. So are we going to use the whole 807?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, did you say the other evening that each vehicle would have one, right?
Right.
That's okay, you don't have to.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Everybody
No,
can.
no,
All right.
we're good. Thanks.
All right.
I got it. Certainly, having gone through some cardiac situations through the past year, I would hope that we could take care of our citizens, and I would make that motion to add the $80,722 for the FEMA match.
So then, Malcolm, I think our advertised number then goes from $3,690,897 to $3,771,619. Let me know if I'm off.
Well, for the pleasure of the council, I did have some recommendations, too, for the capital improvement, capital budget improvement. So, over the course of the last maybe 4 years, 3 or 4 years, give or take a few months, Jones's, formerly known as Jones's Pond, now Townie Pride Memorial Park, has had multiple projects and had grant funded at one point to redo that, to make it a more neighborhood-friendly attraction where people could enjoy that outdoor space. It used to be a live fishing pond prior, even though it's a retention pond. But there were livestock, and if you go by there, there's ducks and all kinds of wild life that live in that area. People walk their dogs there and walk themselves annually. They continue from Pierce Field down there. The people behind at the Vet Parkway will come over during their lunch and utilize that for walking. A couple of years ago, last budget, I think, we had allocated the budget, the council had allocated $100,000 to that park to finish. The project had been started and it was never finished. Some work was done to maintain the integrity of its path because there was a lapse time in the project starting and stopping where the paths had washed away because there was only sand dust that was there holding its place. So the city did put some cement walkway and a portion of it, but there's still, it's never been a finished product. So when we're talking about a project that was started and never finished, that's one that was never finished. So I would like to, have the opportunity to put some money back into it. There were meetings before this administration came in of the new plan with the engineer department of what we could do and be cost effective to kind of finish that out so that the community could enjoy it. I know the neighbors in that area really would appreciate having it complete. They have seen it start and stop multiple times, and they'd like a finished product, and I don't blame them because, it's what was anticipated and what was planned, and I think we should honor it and finish that area. I would say to earmark potentially $75,000 to that area. A lot of the work that was going to be done there was going to be the way of our DPW. We were going to utilize the machine that we have at the in the garage to dig out some areas. I had worked very hard on getting large, oversized granite stones, boulders from the state last year that were not in use to help as material to round out the border of that pond and potentially have some seating and bordering. So like I said, it's a project that's never been finished, and I'd like to see money allocated to it and that be done, and so we can leave it alone. We've never had an official opening of Townie Pride Memorial Park because it's never been finished, and I'd like to see that, in the next year to be able to have that done. There's also, a brick campaign that's going to be taking place to get, add bricks to it with loved ones, dedications there, trees or stones. There's a variety of different things so that we have a true memorial. A lot of people want a place to remember a loved one. I know we did it at Save and Point with our Boy Scout, and I think that came out amazing. I just would like to finish that area also. So I'm putting that on for consideration from the council for next week.
So I think at very least we owe it the opportunity to be advertised and discussed. What I'm tracking then would be the addition of 2 lines to the capital budget. One would be the federal grant match for fire that the mayor mentioned. The other
proposed we call Townie Pride Memorial Park. The number that I would have, it was $80,722 for the federal grant match. It was $75,000 that Councilwoman Souza mentioned for the Townie Pride Memorial Park. By my math, that takes us to a new total of $3,846,619.
And the request for $6,000 for the dog park, the fob card.
I missed that, I'm sorry. So that would be a third line.
And a fourth line, if you wanted to, could entertain me one more. Since we're doing these upgrades to parks throughout the city, which I think is amazing and needed, I think we have to think about also health and sanitation. Most of our parks do not have a public restroom. I know a couple of our parks have porta-johns that are rented and paid for and maintained by leagues in the community. I think it's important as a city, if we're going to maintain and try to provide the community and other communities that come in or outside teams with these beautiful, nice parks that we're trying to redo, I think it's important that we also provide a bathroom and that we don't depend on our little leagues or other sports teams to be providing their own public toiletry. So I'd like to recommend also adding a, I don't know what we call it, DPW Parks bathroom project. It doesn't have to be a brick and mortar, but if it works its way into a project that's currently here and you could do a small brick and mortar, I have looked them up online. They have ADA compliant ones, which I would recommend that at least every park have an ADA compliant porta-john. We could purchase or we could rent. I mean, I would leave that up to the administration to decide. Probably renting might be better, so that way we're not in charge of having to clean and maintain and pump it out. But I think it's important that we, at the very least, provide those facilities for the public.
Have you an idea on a cost per unit?
$3,000 to buy.
No, not to buy, like to rent.
To rent, I'm not sure, but I would be conservative if it's.
Because there's a lot of, I mean, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables.
I like what DEM has done with those compost-type facilities. I don't know what the cost is to set one of those up, but we've got a lot of facilities that we'd have to, purchase. That could be a very big expense.
So there could be at least one per. So we know Pierce Field doesn't require one. We know that Kim Rock doesn't require one. I don't know. I'm never in Ken Heights, so I don't know what Ken Heights has.
It does not have anything.
So Ken Heights would.
Agawam doesn't.
Agawam.
Require one.
Anna Moniz Park also does not have one. So with the Riverside Rec Complex that we're going to be upgrading, that doesn't have one. I mean, they do. Two parks have one, but they're rented by other organizations. So I would say at the very least one at each, just in good faith, and then we can expand on them moving forward down the line.
For the purposes of advertisement, does $15,000 sound like a right?
That's I think a doable number.
So then,
not having taken an RFP or looked into all the details of it.
And this will be seasonal, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right. So, yeah, obviously in the winter, we're not going to be having these parks. They're not going to be open for that type of. So it'd be spring to fall.
Yeah, for these purposes, I think, we can discuss it more on Monday. There are logistics involved. The ones at Riverside Rec are closed, because what they found is that, I'll say kids, I'm sure it was kids, were knocking them over. So they have to chain them locked, and that's why Riverside Little League couldn't use them, because the football group owned them. So they agreed to exchange combinations, because they're not keys, they're combinations. But it's a bit of an ordeal. It will take some planning. Who's going to lock, unlock, secure them at night? If the city does it, is it the city? Is it the leagues? So it takes a little bit of planning, because the one thing the neighbors don't want is to see these things knocked down.
Sure. Nor would I. Yeah.
So let's go through these here then. We're proposing
to advertise potentially 4 new lines. One would be the federal grant match for fire for $80,722. One would be the Townie Pride Memorial Park for $75,000. One would be the dog park for $6,000, and one would be public sanitation parks for $15,000. By my math, that takes us from $3,690,897 to $3,867,619, and I don't know.
And this is all from the capital account?
This is all capital.
We're not transferring or anything?
Any further questions from the council?
I would like to, just make sure Malcolm's track. The total bottom line, Malcolm? I've got $3,846,619. I did that all by hand in margins here, so it could be iffy.
We're adding 6,000, 80,000, 722, 75,000, and 15,000.
Yes, sir.
That totals 176,722.
Yes.
And you're adding that to 369,897.
Yep.
And I'm coming up with 3,867,619.
That's what I came up with.
Okay.
So then I would move to advertise that potential increase in the capital line.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Would anyone like to make a motion, if you don't have anything at this point in time, to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn, please.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you all. See you Monday, 6:30 here, finalizing the budget, and Tuesday at 7 o'clock for a regular city council budget.